Part 59. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 594. After the meeting, Luo Guang returned to his office, where Jill and Ashley were waiting for him. Although Jill and Ashley did not attend the meeting, they also listened to the entire meeting on the computer in his office. I have sent the plan and the coordinates of the enemy base. Ashley told Luo Guang about the work when they met. Okay, I will leave after I pack up my things. Luo Guang nodded. He still had to go to the Mother Nest base to get the researched Ouroboros virus and weapons and equipment. His invisible straight knife was damaged and was not suitable for fighting. Judging from the weapon in Simone's hand, the Apocalypse organization also has very hard materials. Therefore, the weapon that Luo Guang asked Hong Huang to make this time was a hollow long stick with a sharpened end, and no longer used sharp blades such as swords. The diameter of the hollow part in the middle is only half a centimeter, so it will not affect the sturdiness of the weapon. The reason for the design is naturally to give full play to Luo Guang's ability to control electricity, just like the design on the previous straight knife. Jill was silent for a moment after hearing what Luo Guang said, and asked, "What about us?" Originally, she was going to ask about the GIMS troops, but now she only wanted to face it with her beloved. The reason why she said we was naturally to take care of Ashley's emotions, who was not good at fighting. Ashley also knew the other party's good intentions, looked at Luo Guang, and said, "I will help you take care of the rear." Jill looked at Luo Guang, as if waiting for the other party's invitation. Luo Guang looked back and said seriously, "Jill, I promised you that you will go with me this time." Jill smiled happily when he heard this. Luo Guang then turned to look at Ashley and said, "Ashley, I know you actually want to go with us, but you said that because you don't want to hold us back." Ashley's physical fitness has also reached S level, but her combat skills are too poor. Seeing that the other party was a little depressed, Luo Guang said, "But I have another task for you." "What task?" "Neither Jill nor I are 100% sure that we can come back alive on this mission. You also know that we Chinese people attach great importance to passing on our family line." Ashley's eyes widened. She didn't expect Luo Guang to say this at this time. "I want to leave a descendant. If I fail, I don't know what the world will become, but at least this will be my hope." Luo Guang then told Ashley about the Mother Nest base. "If the situation is not favorable, you can go there for protection." The base built by Umbrella Corporation to prolong its survival has now become a fortress that can preserve the hope of mankind. Jill and Chris have been there before, so Jill knows that Luo Guang has made it his own base. Ashley touched her belly and said, "But I'm not pregnant recently." "What if I can't get pregnant?" "No, the biochemical virus in Ashley's body also belongs to the Shinra virus. It is not difficult for Luo Guang to control the ovulation of the other party's body. With the strength of his genetic fluid, it is a routine operation to hit with one shot. Otherwise, why would he be so cautious before? He did this not for any great cause or to pass on his family line, but because he didn't want Ashley to be too sad because of his sacrifice. All this is to prepare for the worst case scenario." Ashley nodded, "I accept this task." After she finished speaking, she looked at Jill. Luo Guang also looked at Jill at the same time and said, "Sorry, Jill, if you think." "Don't even think about it," Jill interrupted Luo Guang's words. She knew what he wanted to say. Her boyfriend was thinking of using this method to keep herself from participating in the attack on the headquarters of the Apocalypse organization. She said, "Anyway, I have decided to go with you." Luo Guang certainly wanted Jill to stay, but he did not persuade her. He hugged Jill on his left and Ashley on his right, and said, "After solving this incident, let's hold the wedding." He knew that this was just a pretext, but he still said it and took out 2 small red boxes from his pocket. At this moment, he finally understood why those people would say such pretext words, just to let the people who loved him in the back have something to look forward to in the coming days, so that they can feel at ease. Jill showed a surprised expression on her face, and Ashley covered her mouth with both hands. Luo Guang helped them put on the rings and said apologetically, "We should have created a romantic atmosphere first, but time is limited, marry me." Jill and Ashley had tears on their faces, and it really didn't look like a proposal atmosphere. But they, especially Jill, had been waiting for this sentence for a long time. The two answered in unison, "I do." Luo Guang smiled, and the three of them hugged each other. Although Ashley was going to get pregnant, Luo Guang did not exclude Jill, and the three of them were very affectionate. However, they did not indulge in the gentleness. The next morning, Luo Guang and Jill set off for the mother nest base in the Caucasus, and Ashley returned to her job to handle various affairs. By the way, Luo Xiaomao, the bodyguard who originally followed Jill, is now with Ashley to protect her. Although Luo Guang died and his clone would disappear, if he died and Ashley was not found to be pregnant with Luo Guang's child, she would not be targeted by the Apocalypse organization. GIM's Troops South Africa Base. Wu Song's clone confirmed Luo Guang's statement at the meeting, and the other party was the real boss of the GIM's unit. After the meeting, he also disclosed the matter in the base, which caused a lot of waves. Especially when Hank returned to the base, he didn't expect that the original Umbrella agent would now become the founder of the GIM's force, and the Umbrella company had not yet collapsed at that time. The same was true for Samus on the other side. The Red Claw Force had not been disbanded at that time, and Luo Guang actually started a new one in advance. No wonder the other party suggested that he and Tanya join the GIM's force. Luo Guang, who was heading to the Brood base, controlled Wu Song's clone. At the conference that gathered all GIM soldiers, he gave the soldiers in the audience a chance to choose. Either go with him to the headquarters of the Apocalypse organization to perform the mission, or stay dealing with biohazards in Africa. Luo Guang did not insist that Hank and the others follow him on the attack mission just because they were his retainers. Hank and others who had taken the pill did not hesitate to choose to follow Wu Song on this mission of a narrow escape and did not flinch. Other criminals who were infected with the Shinra virus did not hesitate and chose to join the assault mission. Apart from them, half of the GIM soldiers chose to join the assault mission, and the other half chose to stay here. Wu Song did not force it, and ordered those who chose to participate in the assault mission to prepare immediately. Then he approached Samus and asked her to lead the remaining soldiers to deal with the biological crisis in Africa. And he also told Samus in advance that if something happened to Luo Guang and him, she would take over the GIM's unit. Then, Wu Song returned to his office to handle the final work of the GIM's unit and arrange the funeral arrangements. Dong dong, someone knocked on the door. It was his secretary Kadai. "Boss Wu, are you going to participate in that mission too?" Wu Song said that the assault mission had a narrow escape, which made Kaidi very worried, so after the meeting, she immediately came to find Wu Song. The reason why he changed his name from Boss Wu was naturally because the other party disclosed the identity of the real boss. But compared to Boss Wu, she prefers to call Wu Song directly by his name. "Yes, this is my mission." Luo Guang intended to end the existence of Wu Song's clone, so he controlled the clone in advance to vaccinate Kaidi. Kaidi took a deep breath and said, "Can you not go?" "Huh?" Wu Song looked slightly surprised, but Luo Guang, who was controlling the clone, soon thought of something and said, "This battle is related to the fate of all mankind, and I must participate." If the other party didn't say it clearly, he naturally wouldn't say it himself. Kaidi felt that if he didn't speak out, he might not have a chance in the future. She made up her mind, clenched her fists, mustered up the courage, looked directly into Wu Song's eyes, and said, "Wu Song, I like you." Jack also knows about this. Jack knew that his mother liked Boss Wu Song, and he also had a very positive view of Wu Song, and felt that he would be a good choice to be his father. This is not because Wu Song dotes on him very much. The other party has always been clear about rewards and punishments. He will not only buy him food and toys because of his good grades, but also educate him if he does something wrong. Wusong gave him the same feeling as other classmates' fathers. He felt the father's love that he had been missing from him. Kaidi and Wusong looked at each other, and she saw that each other's eyes softened. Luo Guang knew that the other person liked his clone, but he was worried that Wusong's change in behavior would arouse others' suspicion. However, he has since restrained Wusong's clone from getting along with the other person. When a beautiful woman says something like this, any man will be moved. Naturally, he is also very grateful for her liking, but Wusong's clone's eyes became firm and he said, "Kaidi, I'm sorry that I can't respond to your feelings." Having learned a lesson and gained wisdom, Luo Guang will not make the same mistakes again. The clone is a part of himself and has no independent consciousness, so he will not accept Katie's feelings through the existence of the clone. This is a deception of Katie and a betrayal of Jill and Ashley. Katie's red lips parted slightly, tears welling up in her eyes. She asked, "Is it because of this mission's narrow escape?" Wusong's clone shook his head and said, "I'm very grateful that you like me, but it's impossible between us." "Why?" Kaidi was very excited and shouted, "Why is it impossible for us to be together? Is it because I am a second-hand person with a child?" Luo Guang has decided that long-term pain is worse than short-term pain. He controlled Wusong's clone and replied, "It has nothing to do with you. It's my problem, because I am not a human being, but a biochemical weapon. To a certain extent, this is not wrong." Liar, Kaidi didn't hesitate at all and directly denied Wusong's words, "If you don't like it, just tell me. Why do you use such words to frustrate me?" Wusong grabbed the opponent's shoulders, looked into each other's eyes, and told the matter seriously, "I didn't lie to you. If Luo Guang hadn't discovered that I had feelings for him and saved me, I would have been captured by Umbrella long ago. The company destroyed them as substandard products. This is a story Luo Guang had made up a long time ago. Umbrella company is gone anyway, so there is no proof. Impossible, in any case, this reality is too cruel for Kaidi." But she still said, "I don't care if you are a biological weapon or not, I like you. If you have feelings, you are a human being." Wusong showed a bitter expression and said, "But I don't have long to live, and I may die at any time. As you know, I have spent more and more time sleeping recently, and less time to wake up. Of course, the real reason is that Luo Guang is busy controlling other clones." Kaidi looked shocked, and she couldn't see any dodge in Wusong's eyes. She didn't expect that there was such a reason for Wusong's change in life and rest. She couldn't hold back the tears anymore and burst into her eyes. Wusong let go of the other party's shoulders and said, "No matter what the outcome of this mission is, these are my last days. Luo Guang gave me a second life and allowed me to get to know you and enjoy human life to the fullest. As a biochemical weapons are worth their weight in this life, so it's time for me to repay him. Since I knew this, why are you so nice to me and Jack? Why do you make me fall in love with you?" Kaidi burst into tears, venting his inner sadness. "I'm sorry." Wusong or Luo Guang didn't know what to say next. "Since this is your last time, why not?" The words were stuck in her throat, and Kaidi couldn't say anything to make the other party give up repaying kindness and stay here to spend the last time with her. "After all, I am not even the other party's girlfriend, and I have already been rejected by the other party." "Right." Kaidi stepped forward, stood up on tiptoes and kissed Wusong's lips, leaving them at the touch like a dragonfly touching water. "Come back alive and let us spend the last days of your life with you." This was her last request. Luo Guang was silent for a while, controlled the clone, and promised the other party, "Things on the battlefield are difficult to predict, so I can't make any promises to you, but I will try my best to survive." Although he changed his original plan, if it would make Kaidi feel better, he would not be so ruthless as to refuse the request. Yes, after receiving Wusong's promise, Kaidi turned around and left Wusong's office crying. Mom, Jack had been waiting outside, watching Kaidi rushing out of the door, and immediately chased after her. Luo Guang and Jill arrived at the Caucasus base. Welcome Master and Mistress, the Red Emperor greeted him personally. It was the first time that Jill saw such a human-like artificial intelligence. She was also surprised. She didn't expect that there would be such a person here. However, the Red Emperor's mouth was like honey, and he directly called her mistress, which made her happy. While Luo Guang led Gil into the depths of the brood base, he introduced Gil to the things here and the things he had concealed back then. You actually did so many things without telling me, Jill puffed up her cheeks, pretending to be angry. Luo Guang would naturally not be deceived by the other party's fake anger, but he had to pretend to be deceived. He quickly explained, I'm sorry, you and Chris had already joined the BSA at that time. In order to prevent them from coming to investigate and discover the existence of the Red Emperor, I had no choice but to make this move. Jill asked, is there anything you are hiding from me? Spit it all out. Luo Guang still hid many things from the other party, such as system matters, but he decided to tell everything he could. Boss of major emerging companies, heir to Umbrella's legacy, boss of GIMS, leader of organization. Jill also knew that Luo Guang had secretly done a lot for world peace, but she didn't expect that her man had unknowingly had the energy to influence the world. I'm still Jill Valentine's husband, Luo Guang added the most critical identity. Jill chuckled, gave Luo Guang a slap, and said, you are a talker. You are still Ashley's sister's husband, have you forgotten? Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 595. Chapter 595. I'm stuck. I haven't finished typing yet and don't have enough time to proofread. Sorry, meow. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 596. Luo Guang and his partner came to the research room of the Mother Nest base. He first introduced Jasmine and two other former researchers of the Apocalypse organization to Jill, and then introduced the virus research team led by Alex and his confidant Stuart. Although biochemical crises broke out all over the world, Sabatai Island was fortunately not targeted by the Apocalypse organization and was still in a relatively peaceful state. But Alex inferred from the global situation that this was another major disaster comparable to the company's chaos, so she chose to prepare for the rainy day and quickly moved her research team and research equipment to the Mother Nest base for protection. Luo Guang did not turn Alex and the others away, because these people were infected with the Shinra virus, and it would be easy for him to kill them, so he notified Hong Huang to open the door and let the other party stay here. In fact, all those infected with the Shinra virus received his last order. If he died on the battlefield, these people would act according to the instructions he left and continue to fight against the Apocalypse organization. Jill greeted everyone one by one and got to know each other. Among them, Jasmine and the two former Apocalypse researchers made her most curious, especially when she saw the face behind Jasmine's mask and knew that the other party was Harlan Night Demon. She was even more incredulous. Jill was a participant in solving the Harlan incident. Unexpectedly, the leader of the Void Cult was hidden by Luo Guang, and the village at the foot of the mountain that was destroyed by the biochemical crisis was also rebuilt by the surviving Void Cult diehards. Although Jasmine lost her freedom, she did not hate her current life. She herself was not tolerated by the world. Now she can freely study what she likes. What else can she ask for? The other two former Apocalypse researchers are research maniacs, so they don't care about staying here every day to study. After all, this place is like a treasure box with all kinds of novel and weird things. Although Jill saw that there were many women in Luo Guang's secret base, She did not suspect that her husband had a mistress. Because although the Red Emperor has a first-class appearance and figure, he only has a virtual image and cannot be touched. Jasmine has an excellent figure, but her face is the face of the Night Demon, and her husband is not so heavy. As for Alex, she was Luo Guang's partner and had only been here for a short time. Her appearance and figure did not suit Luo Guang's taste, so there was no need to doubt her. Luo Guang took advantage of the opportunity when Jill was greeting and communicating with others to inject himself with the Ouroboros virus and immediately began to fuse. Fusion in progress. 99.99%. Because he participated in the research and development throughout the process and knew everything about the virus DNA, the system naturally did not need to repeat the work to analyze the virus. Fusion completed. For the same reason, the genes in the Ouroboros virus were carefully selected by Luo Guang, so there was no need to select and adjust them. They could be directly fused and completed almost instantly. Luo Guang began to check his physical attributes. Basically, every attribute has been greatly improved. Now, in his normal state, he can match the original regular strengthening mode, and the improvement of his mental power allows him to accurately control up to 5 blood plague clones to fight. As for the skills, there was no increase, and it was still the same as before, no more or less. The reason is very simple, because Luo Guang created the Ouroboros virus to break through his own physical bottleneck. Since he developed the Shinra virus, his physical fitness has actually been very slow, and he even feels that the bottleneck is not far away. This Ouroboros virus, developed to commemorate his life and death friend Wesker, has nothing in common with the Ouroboros virus in the game except for the name, but it is the key to his attempt to break through the bottleneck. From the original purpose, he failed to break through this time, and the bottleneck was not broken, but just stuck on that line, but from a good point of view, the bottleneck disappeared. Luo Guang can now easily cross the bottleneck line as long as he enters the regular strengthening mode. The combat power in this state should be the Omega level strength mentioned by Wang Wei. Jill turned back to look at Luo Guang with a feeling, squinted her eyes, and suddenly said, "Luo Guang, how come you seem to have grown taller in the blink of an eye?" "Because I have made another breakthrough in my cultivation," Luo Guang explained. "Don't look at me as if I am idle every day. In fact, I am training myself every moment, otherwise how can I become stronger so quickly?" In fact, he has been very busy recently, but it is better not to say more about his ability to fuse biochemical viruses. After all, he can't explain the system. Jill did not doubt that Luo Guang did become much stronger every time he met her before, but she just thought that this time she happened to meet him. Hearing that her husband had become stronger, she was only happy for him, because this way Luo Guang's chance of surviving the decisive battle became higher again. This is the most important thing, so naturally he would not ask questions. Next, Luo Guang took Jill to the equipment warehouse of the Mother Nest base. Hong Huang had prepared various weapons and equipment according to the requirements of the two. At this time, there was already a person sorting out equipment in the equipment warehouse. His name was Tristan Jason, the same Jason who had assassinated former President Seymour. At this time, he was no longer a monster. Under Luo Guang's training, he returned to human form. As the saying goes, concentration is the essence, so his current combat power is not reduced but increased compared to the monster form, and can match the A-level adapter of the Apocalypse. In fact, it was not the Apocalypse organization that took away Jason's corpse, but the X organization. At first, they just wanted to study the virus in Jason's body, but they didn't expect that Jason was shot so many times and his head was blown up, but he was still alive. After research, it was found that there was an extra brain in the body of this monster, and this brain was not completely destroyed, and it was even constantly repairing itself. The researchers on the scene were overjoyed. They made a decision to play with fire, that is, to throw Jason into the nutrient solution mixed with sleeping pills and sedatives to revive him. This is to observe whether Jason will grow a new head again, and to study whether there will be conflicts between the new head and the old head, etc. Luo Guang took over the power of the entire X organization and major families. When he was studying what good things these men had hidden, he discovered this incident and used some means to send Jason to the Mother Nest base. After completing the body repair, Jason, who had been in a deep sleep, woke up and punched Luo Guang. As a result, he was naturally easily subdued by Luo Guang. Luo Guang made friends with fists and defeated the opponent. After Jason calmed down, he told him what happened after he fell into a coma, and also told him how he dealt with Wilson. He didn't say any great truths throughout the whole process, but just told him the facts, and let him think about whether the attack on the White House was right. Jason was not a very evil person, and the reason why he was so impulsive was also affected by the biochemical virus in his body. Therefore, he soon realized that it was his and Shen Mei's plan that disrupted Luo Guang's plan, which led to so many victims. Originally, no one had to sacrifice, and Wilson would receive the punishment he deserved. Luo Guang looked at Jason, who had figured it out, so he didn't use coercive means to control his thoughts, and had a good talk with him about the future. There were two key points in the conversation. First, although Jason had been stamped with the seal of death in the official archives, in order to avoid trouble, Luo Guang still planned to let him have plastic surgery and change his fake identity, and by the way, let him restore his original human state. For this, Jason also wanted to let go of the past and start over, so he agreed to this without much hesitation. The second was the matter of repaying a favor. Luo Guang openly asked Jason to repay his kindness, not because he saved his life, but because he wanted to avenge him. Jason agreed to join Luo Guang in the war against the Apocalypse organization, but he agreed to this more for atonement, so he was now organizing his equipment and weapons to participate in this assault mission. Since his goal had been achieved, Luo Guang didn't care whether the other party was repaying his kindness or atonement. Jill put on the full-body defense suit that Luo Guang had carefully made for her. This was a single-soldier combat suit made using Luo Guang's hardened armor and the cutting-edge technology of Umbrella and Metal Industries. The whole body can stably defend against 7.62 mm armor-piercing bullets, and there is a certain probability of defense against 12 mm bullets. Not only that, this suit also has an external exoskeleton powered by an experimental small battery. It is not difficult to make an exoskeleton, but the main problem of power supply is difficult to solve. It happened that when the Red Emperor was developing the electromagnetic gun, she needed to overcome the problem of miniaturized batteries, so she made this only experimental small battery. Although the miniature battery is an experimental model, the materials used in the battery are the most excellent and expensive materials, so there are no problems with stability and power supply time. As mentioned before, although the Red Emperor is just an artificial intelligence, he has unimaginable talent in this regard. In addition to this suit, Luo Guang also gave Jill a special Desert Eagle, which has only 7 bullets, but it is filled with his Shinra virus. This gives Jill a chance to counter-attack when facing the difficult-to-deal S-level adapters. As for the weapons and equipment selected by Luo Guang, I will explain it in detail later. The only thing worth mentioning is that he and his clones chose different weapons and equipment to deal with different combat situations. The 5 clones, including Wu Song's clone and Fukato's clone, had already arrived here and were ready. They were doing the final aircraft inspection at the airport, so Jill didn't encounter them when visiting the base. After everything was prepared, Luo Guang and his 5 clones set off for the gathering place. He did not arrange for the mourners to follow. Because the whole world is now against the biochemical crisis, and there is no good impression of the biochemical soldiers, how can they cooperate with them to deal with the Apocalypse organization together? Moreover, as a banner against biochemical crisis, Luo Guang cannot be the first person to use biochemical soldiers, let alone force cooperation between the two sides by shouting about justice. Therefore, from all angles, These biochemical soldiers should not participate in the decisive battle, even if these soldiers were developed to deal with the Apocalypse organization from the beginning. The troops of various countries formed a joint force and stationed on the national defense lines in the east, west, and south of Nepal. Luo Guang did not think of concealing this military operation. After all, the large-scale assembly of troops from various countries here is not for a picnic. How could such a big move be hidden from the Apocalypse organization? So this mission was said to be a strong attack mission from the beginning, not an infiltration mission. According to Luo Guang's plan, the joint army will launch attacks from the three national borders of Nepal and India. The Western Front troops are composed of the German, French, and British troops, the European BSA team led by Parker, and the African BSA team led by Shiva. The Eastern Front consists of the mysterious country troops and the Asian BSA team led by Mara. The Southern Front has the longest front line, with a large number of national troops concentrated here, among which the main forces are composed of the armies of the mysterious country, the lighthouse country and the bear country. Not only that, the North American BSA team led by Chris, including Claire, Steve, Pierce, and others, the DSO tactical team led by Leon, and the GIMS troops led by Jill are all on this front. As for Luo Guang, he is not on any line of defense. He has only one task, that is, to raid the enemy headquarters and carry out a decapitation operation while the general attack attracts the enemy's attention. This is also what he is best at. There are only 5 Blood Plague clones with him, and Jill and Jason have been stuffed into the GIMS team. The combat effectiveness of the GIMS troops is much higher than that of other troops, and is similar to the A-level adapter troops of the Apocalypse. With their cooperation, the survival rate of Jill, who is fully armed like a humanoid Gundam, will be greatly improved. Jill didn't make a fuss, because she would only be a hindrance if she followed Luo Guang, so she might as well help her husband take care of the GIMS troops. Everything was ready, just waiting for the time to start the plan. The person in charge of this operation was not Luo Guang, but a marshal named Li Jing, who was said to be the heir of Li Jing's family. He didn't waste time waiting, and had already called in satellites for monitoring, and found that the entire country of Nepal was dead silent, without a trace of life, and there were only staggering zombies on the streets, and no living people were found. The early small-scale reconnaissance also yielded nothing. This situation revealed a strangeness, so even at the designated time, he was not anxious to order a full-line attack. Li Jing was very cautious, first sending a reconnaissance team to infiltrate, then armored vehicles for firepower reconnaissance, and finally infantry and tanks to advance together, and the army started to clear the zombies in Nepal. Suddenly, more gunfire sounded, and it was the Apocalypse organization that launched an attack. These enemies seemed to have learned teleportation, and appeared from the originally empty houses. This move instantly disrupted the battle situation, and the front-line troops directly entered the melee. In this case, in order to avoid accidental injuries, tanks and armored vehicles can only be cautious when firing artillery and guns, so the efficiency of killing the enemy is limited. Li Jing responded immediately after receiving the front-line battle report, and asked the drone team of the lighthouse country to accurately attack the room where the enemy was stationed. Although this was his first time to command the drone troops to fight, he almost understood how to use this weapon after getting the relevant information. The soldiers who controlled the drones were actually all members of the X organization, and they borrowed the name of the Lighthouse Country Army to participate in the war. This time, the X organization transported almost all of its tens of thousands of drones, so the soldiers who controlled the drones had no idea of saving money for the organization, and directly selected the self-destructing drones to blow up the room where the enemy was stationed. In fact, the joint army brought a lot of helicopters this time, but since the Apocalypse enemy has the ability to blow up tanks and armored vehicles, it naturally has the ability to shoot down helicopters. Therefore, Li Jing would first use the cheaper and remotely controlled drones to destroy the enemy. The Apocalypse organization did not stop resisting. More members appeared with various individual weapons, causing huge losses to the armored forces caught in the street fighting. However, with the help of the powerful transportation capacity of large transport aircraft such as C-5, there were quite a few armored forces participating in this battle. So after Li Jing confirmed that the drone had solved the enemies that suddenly appeared in his offensive force, he sent more armored forces into battle. The Apocalypse organization would not miss such a vacuum period. More Apocalypse members emerged from underground, and the hidden firepower positions only showed their fangs now, launching a massacre against the joint soldiers who temporarily lost the cover of the armored forces. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 597. Such chaotic battles are not only staged in a small border town in Nepal. Similar battles are taking place all over Nepal. As early as the company turmoil, the Apocalypse organization took advantage of the severe disaster in Nepal and almost destroyed the country to build the entire country into an absolute defense circle to defend their headquarters. The borders of Nepal on the east and west lines are not long, and the combat power invested is not small, so the progress is relatively smooth compared to the south line and is progressing steadily. The south line is relatively long and is also the direction where the Apocalypse organization has the strongest defense. Naturally, there are constant troubles and many sacrifices for the attackers. The DSO team led by Leon was caught off guard by the enemies who suddenly appeared around them. The team sacrificed 2 brothers in an instant, and the remaining 4 survivors could only take the initiative to hide in the houses next to them, call for friendly support and hold their positions. Leon and his team were very unfortunate and fell directly into the enemy's encirclement, and there was a surprise prepared by the Apocalypse in the house where they hid. Only the sound of an electric motor was heard from behind a cabinet, and then a large number of bullets shot out from behind the cabinet like a storm. Leon quickly pulled Bruce beside him to the ground, and at the same time clamped the assault rifle on his waist with one hand, and fought back in the direction of the cabinet. The brief confrontation caused Leon to lose 2 men again. In the blink of an eye, only he and Bruce were left in the DSO team he led. They quickly got up and were about to confirm the situation when they heard gunshots and footsteps from outside. A strange voice came from the headsets of the 2, "Support is coming, I'm outside the door." As soon as the voice fell, a 2-meter-tall enemy holding a Gatling machine gun kicked open the cabinet and walked out from the back. "There is a tyrant, run!" Leon quickly pulled Bruce up, turned on the communicator and shouted. When he saw the tyrant-type biological weapon in front of him, he had only one thought in his mind: run. But he did not stop shooting because of this, and successfully interrupted the ammunition supply chain of the Gatling machine gun in the tyrant's hand. The tyrant's eyes began to lock on the target, the motor started to turn, and the bullets shot out, passing behind Leon and the other man. The enemy was about to move the muzzle to the left, but the gunshot stopped abruptly, and Leon and Bruce were not torn into pieces by the bullets. The people outside had been listening to the situation inside the door. The DSO team did not carry a weapon with obvious characteristics such as a Gatling gun, so he shouted "Gims," when the enemy's gunshot stopped. At the same time, he kicked the door and rushed in. This person also held a Gatling gun in his hand, but the difference was that this machine gun was shorter than the one in the tyrant's hand. Although the barrel length was shortened, the caliber was the same. The tyrant was just a flesh and blood body. Although he held a hot weapon, he was not wearing heavy armor on his body. Naturally, he could not withstand the storm of bullets and was riddled with holes. With a bang, the tyrant's head suddenly exploded, and a parasite emerged, rushing towards the brave Gim soldier with fangs and claws. Perka parasite, how could Leon forget that hateful parasite? He reminded loudly. The Gim soldier sneered, raised his fist and punched the rushing parasite back. The machine gun turned again and smashed the parasite to pieces with bullets. "My name is Hansen, the captain of the Gim suicide squad. His real name is Jason." Leon, wearing a gas mask, also introduced himself and said, I am the captain of DSO, just call me Leon. Jason didn't expect that the person he saved was actually an acquaintance, and said, Leon S. Kennedy. I have heard of you for a long time. Do you know me? Leon was a little surprised. The other party was wearing a gas mask, so he couldn't see his appearance, and there was no one named Hansen among the GIM soldiers he knew. All the people in the United Army wore gas masks, and the enemies of the Apocalypse organization did not wear gas masks, so it was relatively easy to distinguish between the enemy and us. However, to be on the safe side, the members of the United Army still wore the armbands of the United Nations. Jason was about to reply when he noticed footsteps behind him. The person who came was his subordinate, who told him the latest situation. Captain, the enemies outside have been dealt with, and we lost 7 people. In addition, the Angel Squad encountered fierce resistance from the enemy. Let's go over and defeat the enemy together. Jason nodded to show that he understood. Then he turned his head and continued to say to Leon, Leon, is Shenmei okay? Yes, do you know Shenmei? Leon looked puzzled. A man named Jason asked me to convey a message to her. He said he was sorry for her. Jason continued, I happened to meet you, so please help convey it. Just consider it as a repayment for saving my life just now. He said the only regret he had when he was still a human, and then turned and left the room to support Carlos and the others. Bruce interrupted at this time and said, who is that person? Do you know him? And who is Jason? There are many people named Jason, so he couldn't confirm who he was talking about based on this name. Leon shook his head to indicate that he didn't know the other person, and answered the last question, I think the Jason he is talking about is the one who assassinated the former president. Bruce knew something about that matter, so he was naturally very surprised and said, but didn't that Jason turn into a monster and then be beaten to death? Oh, that guy's body was taken away. Did someone resurrect him? Lion's mind was in a mess now. He was suddenly surrounded by the enemy. The tyrant appeared and was easily dealt with, and the other party said something about Jason, which made him confused for a while. He said, Bruce, let's go upstairs, you protect me. Bruce immediately executed it, but still asked the question, what are you going to do? Convey the message to Shenmei. Leon made a decision in his heart. Why did he do this first under this circumstance? Because he was worried that he would not survive this battle. Anyway, it was just a matter of words, so he did it first. Shenmei also followed Leon and others to the front line, but she did not participate in the battle, but stayed in the front line base. But her task was not easy, contacting other troops, communicating logistics, providing intelligence support and analysis, etc. This is the DSO command room. Many tents were set up at the front line base, and DSO also occupied a tent as its own headquarters. Leon said, I met someone from the GIMS unit, and he knew you and Jason. Jason, Shenmei was stunned. She didn't expect that this name would suddenly reach her ears. Leon said what he had conveyed, and then said, Jason may still be alive. Jason's corpse was kidnapped, and he was dead and his body was not found. He thought of the strong vitality shared by biochemical monsters, and couldn't help but conclude that Jason might still be alive. Then where is he now? Shenmei also felt sorry for Jason. It was she who backed down and betrayed Jason. I don't know, Leon said, I just conveyed someone else's words, and that person continued to perform the mission after he finished speaking. Shenmei gritted her teeth and said, Leon, let's stop here. It's important to solve the biochemical crisis now. You are also on a mission, so don't be distracted. Leon accepted the other party's kindness and said, got it? The number of people in the Apocalypse organization is definitely not as large as that of the multinational joint forces, but they still have biochemical weapons to use. Tyrants, lickers, hunters, biochemical soldiers, etc., all kinds of biochemical weapons appear one by one like a catwalk. The GIM's troops are blooming in many places. Their mission is to deal with those difficult to deal with biochemical weapons and reduce the casualties of soldiers. However, there is a GIM soldier whose enemy is not a biochemical weapon, but an enhanced person developed by the Apocalypse organization. This person is a woman with short hair and looks ordinary, but she is 7 points similar to Hank. If Wolf Mom was here, she might remember that she had seen this face on the computer at the Harlan Freight Center. Mary. Hank whispered a name that had not been mentioned for a long time. When he was still serving in the Special Air Service Regiment, he also had a happy family. However, the good times did not last long. His wife and daughter disappeared when they went out shopping. In the end, he only found his wife's cold body, and his daughter disappeared without a trace. Not long after this incident, Hank retired from the Special Air Service Regiment and began to pursue the real murderer. However, the real murderer disappeared completely, and all clues were cut off. Just when Hank was drinking, Umbrella Company found him, and since then he has been obsessed with various tasks. The man did not respond to the name Hank said, pulled out a dagger, and attacked without fear of the assault rifle in Hank's hand. "Are you Mary?" Hank threw the assault rifle behind him, took out the dagger, and shouted again. He held the dagger in reverse and faced the enemy's dagger, and the movements of both sides were almost the same. "My name is LH01, the name that the woman said was not a person's name at all." She held the dagger and continued to attack. LH is the abbreviation of Lady Hunk, and 01 is her number as an enhanced person. Hank blocked with the dagger, stepped forward, and grasped the enemy's right wrist with his left hand. He didn't know the meaning of the other party's name, nor was he sure whether the other party was his daughter who was kidnapped many years ago, but he knew that this might be the last hope. So he focused on defense and tried to capture and control the other party. Hank, who had ignited hope, remained calm. He did not forget to call Lone Wolf to help. He called Lone Wolf to help not to control the other party together. Although the other party was an enhanced person, he was also a soldier who had been enhanced by the Shinra virus and had experienced many battles. Hank grabbed the other party's wrist holding the dagger, immediately threw away the dagger in his right hand, and then controlled the enemy's right hand to use a small hand return, and threw the other party to the ground. He took this opportunity to gain the advantage of position, and locked the other party's neck to make the brain lack oxygen and coma. Enhanced people are also people, and they also need oxygen to breathe. Lone Wolf quickly arrived at the scene and was shocked to see Hank knocked a woman unconscious. He couldn't help but think that the Grim Reaper was in his old age and fell in love with the enemy at first sight. Hank didn't know what Lone Wolf was thinking, and said, "Help me tie this man up and take him back to be detained." This was not a task for their team, but Lone Wolf and Hank had worked together for many years and knew each other's personality. There must be a special reason for doing such things that had nothing to do with the action, so he immediately did it. But there must be a reason to bring such an enemy back. Hank did not say that this was to interrogate the enemy's defense circle, and directly told his real reason. He looked at the Lone Wolf who used the binding technique and said, "This person may be my missing daughter, please." The Lone Wolf did not know that the other party had a family and a daughter. Hearing this, he couldn't help but feel that the person on his shoulders was heavier than at the beginning. Luo Guang went down the mountain from the Himalayas to the south. He took the old road that Li Qingxian took to enter the headquarters and attacked directly to the door of the enemy headquarters. Normally, he should wait until the battles in various places are over before rushing into the headquarters of the Apocalypse organization together. But the current battle situation was also within his expectations, so he did not wait and jumped to the enemy's gate. The result surprised him. The door of the enemy headquarters was open, and he was attacked by the enemy as soon as he appeared. This is the rhythm of going through 5 levels and killing 6 generals. Luo Guang did not know why the enemy opened the door, but he also knew what he was going to do next. The Fukado clone opened the backpack, took out several smoke bombs from it, and then threw the smoke bombs directly. Suddenly, the enemy's defensive position was filled with smoke. One person and 5 clones did not need any communication, and they rushed forward with guns. A gust of wind blew, and the enemy turned on a high-power fan to blow away the smoke. At the same time, the enemies did not stop shooting, because they had already assigned their respective positions and rays. As long as the guns did not move around, they would not accidentally hurt their own people. The smoke that originally enveloped the enemy in turn obscured Luo Guang's vision. But he had other reconnaissance methods, scanning and firing, quickly confirming the enemy's position. At the same time, they did not forget to counterattack, raising their guns for precise shooting. The melee weapons Luo Guang brought were mainly used to deal with S-level adapters. As for those A-level adapters, it was more convenient to use guns. Once he counterattacked, the pressure of avoiding bullets was reduced. The Apocalypse organization was not a vegetarian, and the 6-round grenade launcher was taken out. Fukato, Luo Guang had already rushed out of the smoke range and shouted immediately when he saw the enemy's actions. He could give orders to the clone without shouting, but this was just to conceal his connection with the clone and pave the way for the final decisive battle in advance. The clone of Fukato rushed towards the flying grenade. To the enemy, it was like a pair of hands suddenly turned into 3 pairs of hands, and instantly caught the grenade from the side and threw it back. These grenades are touch-type, and will explode only after hitting the target, so Luo Guang let the clone use this trick to blow the enemy upside down. Luo Guang led the clone to the headquarters of the Apocalypse organization under the cover of the explosion and quickly cleared the enemy. He did not rush to go deep inside, but first notified the joint forces that he had successfully found the entrance to the enemy headquarters. Next, he would perform a decapitation mission or a delay mission according to the situation. In short, if he failed to solve the head of the Apocalypse organization, he would delay the enemy to prevent the enemy from escaping. After reporting the situation, he continued to go deeper. Suddenly, the sound of the mechanism sounded, and the huge and heavy alloy door panel fell from the ceiling behind Luo Guang. This is not a TV show. It takes a lot of time to close a door so that the protagonist can pass through the door in time. Welcome, Luo Guang. We have been waiting for you for a long time. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 598. Did you know I was coming? Luo Guang went straight to the point without any nonsense. He knew that since the other party took the initiative to speak, he must want to communicate with him, and naturally he had the corresponding radio equipment. Let me introduce myself first. You can call me number 1. In fact, we have been paying attention to your movements, and we also know that you left the big team to come here. The first seat's tone was gentle, just like talking to a friend, without any anger. But he did not tell the matter of the detection system, because although Luo Guang met the requirements of computer simulation evolution, they still had the last test to give the other party to ensure that the system detection was accurate. Survival of the fittest, only the strongest can have the possibility of evolution. So powerful, Luo Guang pretended to be surprised. Our Apocalypse organization has a long history and has been committed to selecting the right talents in order to make us humans take a step forward. The first seat expounded on what Luo Guang had heard many times, and he continued, and you are the talent we have always been thinking about. You talk about how great and glorious you are, as if you are making contributions to all mankind, but in fact you are just an evil organization that cheats, does whatever it takes, and is obsessed with power. I think you have misunderstood. We took those measures to keep the organization's secrets and maintain world peace. As for being obsessed with power, it is nonsense. Luo Guang sneered, if you are not obsessed with power, why do you hide so many cutting-edge technologies? These technologies can change the world, but you only use them on yourself. He specifically said, organizations like yours must have a lot of technologies that are beneficial to medical health, right? The first seat was silent for a while, and retorted, "We hide these just because we don't want anyone to use these technologies to seek benefits and power. Our apocalypse organization is not weak, but it can't stop so many tanks and helicopters." He grew up in the apocalypse organization since he was a child. He firmly believes in the mission of his organization and is full of vigilance against the outside world. Believing that human nature is evil, they do not trust the powerful people in major countries or organizations. The first seat continued, "From ancient times to the present, those rulers like to dream of immortality. Even now there are many powerful people who want to enjoy these forever." He did not mention money, because powerful people naturally have a lot of ways to make money. Our organization cannot become a puppet of power, and we will not allow anyone to control the key to the door of human evolution. The first seat was full of pride, and he deeply believed that what he did was right. The Dragon Slayer eventually became an evil dragon, and it is you who hold the key to the door of human progress. Luo Guang continued to go deeper with his clone, and did not intend to turn back and smash the door. The first seat did not respond to Luo Guang's doubts, and said to himself, "Let's get back to business. Next, we, the Apocalypse, will give you the last trial. If you pass the trial, the key to evolution will be handed over to you, and then you will naturally understand the difficulties of our organization." Originally, there was no need for a trial. The 12 seats did this just to cover the mouths of their subordinates. As Luo Guang said, some S-level adapters are obsessed with their own strength and power, and they will not allow others to step on them to evolve. The first seat can actually understand the problem, Luo Guang said. Because they, the 12 seats, have been busy creating the key to evolution before, the monitoring of the entire organization has naturally weakened, so the organization will deviate from the right track during the development process. This trial is also to eliminate the scum in their organization. Luo Guang stopped and asked, "Trial?" It's better not to ask. If he can get the news of the trial, it will be convenient for him to deal with it or adjust his plan. Our headquarters is 100 floors deep underground. You go down the spiral staircase. There are enemies arranged by us on each floor. You need to enter the floor and eliminate them before you can open the door to the next floor. Stairs, room, stairs, you can go all the way to the end. Luo Guang couldn't help but think of the game If You Are a Man, Go Down 100 Floors he played on the web before, and he couldn't help but feel blood boiling. Haha, can't I just break through the floor and go down? Of course, but then you will not face enemies on the same floor. The first seat had thought of this situation a long time ago, and the 12th seat did not pin his hopes on the defense of the floor. No matter how hard the floor is, it is installed. It can be easily removed by finding a gap. Luo Guang shrugged, spread his hands, and said, "I don't care. It can save time if we go together." He is indeed not afraid, and the more people, the better. The enemy's headquarters is underground. Due to cost issues, the room will definitely not be too large, so no matter how many S-level adapters there are, they will only interfere with each other and cannot attack him at the same time and pose a threat. Then I will wait and see, waiting for your arrival on the 100th floor. The first seat knew that the other party was not arrogant, but confident. He also had expectations in his heart, and felt that he was getting closer and closer to the achievement of the organization's goals. Luo Guang and his clone continued to move forward and soon came to the spiral staircase mentioned by the other party. He did not lie to the enemy, and he did intend to save time, because according to his experience in playing games and the other party's words, the difficulty of this so-called trial must increase layer by layer. However, he did not start digging directly on the first floor, but planned to see the situation first. Luo Guang and his clone walked into the door of the first floor. Behind them was a room of more than 50 square meters. 7 S-level adapters looked at him covetously. "Only 7 of you." These 7 enemies were not very smart. They were all new generation adapters who had just reached adulthood not long ago. They should have just completed their mission and returned to the Apocalypse headquarters recently. Luo Guang saw that the other party was young and innocent, and he directly mocked and angered them. Go to hell, these 7 people were like barrels of explosives, and they were directly blown up by Luo Guang's words and killed them. Luo Guang stood still, and the 5 clones behind him took the initiative to meet him. In one move, in an instant, 5 enemies were killed. The remaining 2 enemies looked forward, without looking back, and killed Luo Guang. But the killing moves of the 2 were blocked by Luo Guang with one hand, although their heads were blown up by his counterattack. Although Luo Guang only used his physical ability, it still attracted the discussion of the 12 seats who were hiding behind the surveillance. The first seat immediately asked, "Have you guessed Luo Guang's speed and strength? There are only a handful of people in our organization who can reach his level. Simone was defeated by him, what else is there to guess?" The third seat was still nonchalant, waved his hand, and expressed his opinion. The first seat said, "But this is just the opponent's normal state. Simone's normal speed and strength are not as strong as Luo Guang's current one. I wonder which level can force out Luo Guang's true strength." The S level who was just defeated really insulted this level. He was defeated in one move. The 12th seat asked the question. Only by forcing out Luo Guang's full strength can we confirm whether he is a pure human. Although whether he is a pure human has little impact on the use of the evolution key, if he is, it can prove that Luo Guang's potential has not been exhausted, and perhaps it can make human evolution go further. The 4th seat's focus is elsewhere, have you noticed? The 5 people brought by the opponent can also rank in the top 20 in our organization in terms of combat effectiveness. The 7th seat nodded, he also found this problem. I have already investigated. One of them is named Wu Song, who is the boss of GIMS. As for the others, there is basically no information. The 8th seat responded to the whole question. Fakado's clone has been operating in secret, so naturally he did not leave any information. Their strength seems to be not much different from Luo Guang, but the detection system only detected Luo Guang. The 7th seat, as the one who loves research the most, said, I suspect that the relationship between them is not simple. But no matter what, our target is only Luo Guang, and we have to find a way to get rid of the other guys. The first seat quickly thought of a way and said, I will modify the difficulty of the subsequent battles, and try to get rid of the enemies other than Luo Guang first. Luo Guang did not know the evaluation of the 12th seat on himself. He used a hardened armor syringe to inject the eternal toxin into the enemy's body to ensure that the enemy he eliminated would never be reborn. After doing all this, he moved on to the next room. He has the eternal virus. The 7th seat had a little surprise on his face. The first seat asked, during the Berlin incident, was there a mysterious person who destroyed the virus samples in the Underground Research Institute? The 8th seat knew all this very well. Yes, you suspect that person is Luo Guang? He did go to Berlin as a member of the Red Claws. Yes. But it's useless to know now. Keep watching. Luo Guang came to the second room, which contained 12 S-level adapters. The S levels arranged by the 12 seats did not increase in number according to the difficulty. They would use computer simulation and grouping to ensure that the S-level adapters at each level could cooperate with each other and perform wonderful operations. However, there are still many discrepancies between computer simulation and reality. For example, the 7 people who were slightly provoked by Luo Guang forgot about the previous cooperative training and launched an attack all at once. These 12 people are also young people. They have only conducted simulated training with each other in the past few days, and their tacit understanding is not deep. On the other hand, Luo Guang and his clones are originally one, and that is the real tacit understanding. One person and 5 clones have clear division of labor, creating a situation of more people fighting fewer people in a local area to eliminate the enemy in batches. The enemy also fought hard. They were fighting to eliminate Luo Guang at first, but now they are fighting for survival. At the critical moment of life and death, some people broke through, and some gave up, but they were all clowns in front of Luo Guang, and were easily solved by him and his clones. Alas, the first seat felt very uncomfortable when he saw someone breaking through on the spot. This shows that those S-level adapters could have achieved higher achievements, but their organization's training policy for them was wrong, which harmed them. Luo Guang didn't care about that and came to the third room. The number of people in this room did not increase but decreased, only 3 people. But they are triplets, all wearing red armor, holding large swords, and killing aggressively. Hee, now it's our turn to be in large numbers. Luo Guang looked like a treacherous villain. He and his clones have a total of 6 people, just 2 can deal with 1. In addition, his current strength is far superior to the enemy, so as long as one clone blocks the opponent's sword, the other can directly reap the enemy's life. The triplets were born on the same day of the same month of the same year, and now they die on the same day of the same month of the same year, which is also a good story. There are only these 3 rooms on the first floor. Luo Guang pressed the switch in this room to open the door to the next floor. Luo Guang did not pound the ground when he came to the second floor. From the road he had just walked, the floor below was not the next floor, but soil or stone. Rather than digging a pit and letting the enemy take advantage, it would be faster to kill through it directly. So he gave up his previous plan and entered the room on the second floor. But this time he didn't waste any time, rushed straight to the door opposite, and then smashed a big hole in the door. The 5 enemies in this room were unable to react in time. They were still surprised at Luo Guang's speed, and were killed by the clone who seized the flaw. The same one move defeated the enemy, and then the clone continued to destroy the corpse with eternal poison. The clone followed the main body to the second room, but the main body had already dealt with the enemy, so the clone only needed to destroy the enemy's corpse. Luo Guang had a smooth journey, killing people and Buddhas, and the S-level of the apocalypse was not his enemy in one move. The 31st floor. At this point, the enemies Luo Guang encountered were no longer the young men who had completed the trial mission before, but S-level adapters with certain qualifications. He looked at the enemies in the first room with a smile on his face, and ordered his clones to rush forward. The 8 S-level adapters set up a battle formation to prepare for the response, but 2 of them turned against them at the last minute and suddenly attacked their teammates. The enemy fell into chaos and could not organize any resistance, so they were easily dealt with by Luo Guang and his team. The 2 who turned against them at the last minute were S-level adapters who had practiced with Li Qingxian and were infected with the Shinra virus. The reason why Luo Guang failed to use the Shinra virus on them to locate the headquarters of the Apocalypse Organization was because he did not know that the Apocalypse Organization would suddenly launch the plan at that time, so the Shinra virus on these people was all in a camouflage state for the sake of secrecy. In this state, the appearance and function of the Shinra virus will become the same as normal human somatic cells and will continue to replicate and multiply, naturally losing the function of sending information and receiving instructions. Therefore, these cells can only be activated by him to return to the virus state. The virus in Li Qingxian's body also performed the same operation after entering the headquarters and before the physical examination, so Luo Guang was unable to obtain more intelligence. Anyway, the enemy's position has been found, so this is to prevent the Shinra virus from being detected by the Apocalypse Organization, so as to give the Apocalypse Organization a fatal blow at the critical moment. Now, this critical moment has arrived. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 599. The 12 people were shocked when they saw the members of the organization betraying the organization. The second person stood up and looked at the screen, saying in disbelief, "Why would our people betray? This is impossible." No one could answer his question, and the information of Simone's betrayal could not be transmitted back to the Apocalypse organization. Naturally, they could not guess that Luo Guang had the ability to control humans. Luo Guang did not care about being discovered by the enemy now. Anyway, the enemy would not find the reason for the betrayal, nor could they find and confirm which members were infected with the Shinra virus. If he personally caused a biochemical crisis, it would be the beginning of the end of mankind. Jill and Ashley were his reverse scales and his limiters. Luo Guang led his clone and the 2 new members to the next room. The 12 people discussed it one after another, but without evidence. Everything was so pale. Although they were reluctant, they still told the S-level adapters on other levels about the situation. This situation caused everyone to suspect each other, and the original tacit understanding was invisibly destroyed by Luo Guang, which greatly reduced the difficulty of this trial. Half an hour later, Luo Guang brought 5 clones and the controlled people to the 83rd floor. Because he only used the controlled enemy members as cannon fodder, more than half of the controlled members had been killed by his own people. Now there are 48 controlled people left with Luo Guang, including Li Qingxian and Xena. The lower this place is, the more rooms there are and the larger the area is. Luo Guang met the senior staff of the Wang family in the 38th room of this floor. It is worth mentioning that the Wang family can be said to be the main reason why Luo Guang could not get the evolution key directly and wasted time to participate in this trial. They are the main force of opposition. Humph, we finally meet. Wang Jianmin glared at Luo Guang and said, "You still want to get the evolution key through the trial? With me here, it's impossible. I want you to pay for your life." The wife next to him also glared at her enemy who killed her grandson. "Who are you? Hurry up and lie back in the coffin. It's not decent to shout here." Luo Guang didn't know the other party at all. "We are Wang Yutang's grandparents." "Who is that guy? I have no impression of him." Luo Guang would not admit this, even if it was insignificant. While talking trash, he was also observing the situation here. Unlike the previous room, there was a palm-deep water on the floor here, just covering Luo Guang's hardened armored soles. Although the specific reason is unknown, it should be the terrain prepared by the apocalypse for the 2 enemies in front of him, so that the 2 people's skills can be better exerted. Luo Guang suddenly thought of Wang Yutang's ability to control electricity. The 2 people in front of him were the grandparents of that person, so they might also have the ability to control electricity, so there would be water on the ground. When Wang Huimei heard Luo Guang's words, she could not hide her anger and shouted, "It's the young man you defeated in the castle." She told Wang Yutang's appearance characteristics. Luo Guang sneered, "Don't blame me for everything. I don't know this person at all, and I haven't been to any castle." He was wearing a mask at the time, and even if the other party controlled Wang Yutang's eyes, he could not confirm that the person was him. Wang Jianmin questioned, "Don't try to deceive us. Except for someone as strong as you, how could an ordinary S-level person defeat our precious grandson?" One of the reasons why he identified his enemy as Luo Guang was that he didn't want his precious grandson to be killed by an unknown person. "There are so many garbage in your apocalypse organization. I have cleaned up more than 6,000 of them. What's so strange about that Wang Yutang being defeated by others?" After Luo Guang finished speaking, he turned around and asked the clone and others if they had seen Wang Yutang. And they were very cooperative. They either said that they had never seen each other, or laughed and said all kinds of ugly words to mock Wang Yutang. Luo Guang didn't care about the dead being the greatest. He would not be merciful to the enemy, otherwise he would be disrespectful to those who died in this apocalypse organization incident. "Go to hell, you liar!" Wang Jianmin couldn't stand this anger and immediately launched an attack. The betrayers controlled by Luo Guang had received his instructions long ago. When the enemy shouted, they used various means to stay away from the water surface, and then used various means to launch long-range attacks or directly kill Wang Jianmin and the others. As for Luo Guang, neither he nor his clone moved, but they knew what Wang Jianmin's attack was. In fact, it was to use the conductivity of water to attack. No wonder Wang Jianmin and his clone were the only ones guarding the room. Luo Guang was immune to electric shock, so he didn't need to dodge. But the shoes of the original body and the clone were made of hardened armor, which would deform when conducting electricity and heat, so he knew that the enemy's attack method was exactly the same as what he guessed. "You shouted so loudly, but why is there no lethality at all?" Luo Guang did not forget to mock. "Humph. Watch out." Wang Huimei used her ability, and the water on the ground fluctuated, stretching upwards to cover the traitors who came to kill, or blocking those long-range attacks. Luo Guang and his clone also started to attack, and killed the other party while he was distracted from attacking the cannon fodder. A trivial trick. Huimei, Wang Jianmin saw Luo Guang's plan, sneered, increased the current and voltage, and instantly electrocuted the dozen trapped and controlled members into charcoal. There is a very important characteristic of electric current attack. After being hit, the whole body will be damaged, not just the part that is hit. Wang Huimei waved her hands, and the water on both sides of the room rushed to the middle like waves. The sound of light machine guns rang out, and the two clones took their weapons and fired at Wang Jianmin and the other two. This was their last bullet. The trajectory of the bullets fired became very strange, and they always streaked to the side of the enemy. With Luo Guang's control ability, there would be no such thing as tracing the gun, which means that the problem lies with the enemy. Magnetic field. Luo Guang saw the opponent's defensive means because he could do it too. Wang Jianmin sneered and rushed up on his own initiative. He solved the traitor who blocked the road with 2 or 3 moves, and then hit him with a palm. Luo Guang returned a palm directly and hit the enemy's palm. The difference was that a spike suddenly appeared in the palm of his hardened armor glove, which gave Wang Jianmin's palm a chill. Wang Jianmin gritted his teeth, took back the electricity he had previously emitted, hit all of it in his palm, and then guided it to Luo Guang. At this time, the wave closed up, but Luo Guang and the clone ignored this attack. Wang Huimei controlled the water ball to cover the mouths and noses of Luo Guang and his men to isolate the oxygen, and at the same time, the water tried to get into the 5 holes on their faces. Not only that, she also increased the water pressure to try to crush their eyeballs. The clones did not besiege Wang Jianmin, they all passed by Wang Jianmin and killed Wang Huimei. They don't need to breathe. They can control their bodies like the original body and directly close the 5 holes on their faces. Although eyeballs are a shortcoming of humans, their eyelids are as hard as rocks, so the water pressure can't press the eyeballs for a while. The strange bacteria in the water naturally can't break Luo Guang's immune system. As for closing your eyes and not seeing things, it's not a problem for Luo Guang and his clones who can scan the surrounding environment. Wang Huimei's water control ability is first class. As long as she is in the right environment, she is invincible, and even Wang Jianmin is not her opponent. But she is facing 5 clones as powerful as Luo Guang at this time, so unless she is in a lake or in the sea, it's only a matter of time before she is defeated. Damn it, Wang Jianmin naturally knew this, and he pulled away and went back to support. Although Luo Guang wanted to mock the opponent's weak attack, he was not thirsty and did not want to drink water, so he could only suppress the mockery in his heart. However, he immediately took action, grabbed the enemy's wrist with his backhand, and pulled the opponent to prevent him from going back to support. Wang Jianmin was furious and attacked Luo Guang, but was blocked by Luo Guang. In the end, he could only watch his wife being attacked by 5 big men in turn, and then lost her life and fell to the ground. The water ball on Luo Guang's face finally dissipated, and he immediately said, "Your electric energy attack is as weak as your grandson's." What? Wang Jianmin was still immersed in his wife's death. He was about to roar and go berserk when he heard Luo Guang's words. He didn't expect the other party to suddenly admit that he was the one who killed Wang Yutang. However, due to this flaw caused by the days, he was caught by Luo Guang in the heart in a physical sense. Luo Guang didn't waste words, directly crushed the enemy's energy supply system, and then punched and kicked Wang Jianmin. Because it seems that they don't respect the elderly and love the young at all, I won't describe them in detail here. Wang Jianmin and Wang Huimei both have excellent control ability, but they both fight with emotions, and then they are constantly disturbed by Luo Guang's trash talk, which leads to a lack of delicateness in their performance. Wang Huimei can't win alone against 5, and Wang Jianmin has already lost the moment he showed a flaw in the battle between S-level adapters. The remaining levels are not easier than Wang Jianmin and his team, and Luo Guang and his clone also have scars on their bodies. In fact, many wounds would not have appeared if they had used various abilities to deal with them at that time. But with Luo Guang's powerful recovery ability, these injuries are minor and will not affect combat effectiveness, so he just forbears. However, those cannon fodders are not so lucky. They have all died in battle, and Luo Guang finally gave them a shot of eternal toxin. When Luo Guang and his clone came to the 100th floor underground, the door opened automatically without him opening it himself. The space inside is very spacious, and it is the largest room he saw when he entered the Apocalypse headquarters. The room was bright, with a huge round table in the middle, with 12 seats, all of which were occupied. At the opposite end of the room, there was a huge door with 11 lights installed asymmetrically on both sides. 12 seats. Luo Guang took the initiative to ask, "You shouldn't be the last examiner, right?" The first seat sat on the chair, took off the mask, revealing a happy smile inside, and said, "Why do you think so?" Luo Guang looked at the kind smile on the other's old face and said, "According to the principle that there is a fifth among the 4 kings in games and movies, there must be a 13th person behind you 12 seats." His decisive words were exchanged for the third seat's laughter. The first seat did not expect the other party to give such a reason, and his expression became stiff. He froze in place and did not respond. "Stop joking, let's talk about business quickly. Are you the ones who are going to be killed this time?" Luo Guang took the initiative to speak. The first seat was depressed for a while, and the joy on his face disappeared. He said slowly, "No need, you have completed the trial." The first seat stood up, glanced at the people in other seats, and said, "Everyone, after 500 years since the establishment of the Apocalypse organization, we finally see the dawn of achieving our goals, so it's time for you to return." His very abrupt words caused a drastic change in the situation on the field. Everyone except the third seat pulled out daggers with their own unique numerical crests from their waists, and then thrust the knives into them from their chins. These people took their own lives without hesitation. As the people in those seats died, Luo Guang noticed that the lights on both sides of the distant door were lit one by one. At the same time, the old face of the First Lady is getting younger and younger, showing signs of rejuvenating. He looked at the third seat, which had not moved for a long time, and did not speak. The third seat took off his mask with trembling hands, revealing the ferocious and twisted face underneath. He was sweating profusely and seemed to be struggling, but he could only watch the dagger slowly inserting into his brain. Over there at the gate, the last light came on. All the other 11 seats died, and the first seat now looked like a 20-year-old young man, full of vitality. Luo Guang saw something was wrong. At first, the pressure these 12 seats put on him was equivalent to the enemy in the last room on the 99th floor. But now the opponent's momentum is completely different, so in order to prevent the boat from capsizing in the gutter, he is ready to use all his strength. He opened his mouth to collect information. "Are they your clones? You see? Have you ever heard of killing 3 corpses? My ability is similar to that thing. I can separate the 7 emotions and 6 desires and turn them into clones. But the clone of the desire for death commits suicide every day, so I didn't release it. The first one can actually create up to 13 clones, but at that time he will be a walking corpse. Another point is that although the passions are divided, because they are still connected, there is no phenomenon that each clone has only one passion. The first person talked about the door as if they were talking about home affairs. You should also see the door behind me, right? The key to evolution is inside. If other unqualified people break in, we will disperse and escape. Unless all the other 11 people die, otherwise the one behind me the door cannot be opened. If the enemy forces it open, it will only destroy the evolution key inside. He looked at the 5 clones beside Luo Guang, suddenly realized, and said, so that's it, those 5 people are your clones, right? No wonder the detection system only targeted you. The combat power of those 5 people was comparable to that of Luo Guang, and they cooperated tacitly. There was no way that the detection system would not respond. Since Luo Guang told the truth about his ability, it is very likely that the other party has the same ability. Detection system, the other party said, but Luo Guang would not admit it and asked instead about the words he heard for the first time. The first chair said, this global biochemical crisis is just a drug introduction, in order for our system to detect all humans in the world to find those who can adapt to the evolutionary key. He sighed, looking pitiful, and added, if I had known that you were our target, I should have brought you back to the organization at all costs, so that the world would not have to fall into chaos. Don't blame me for the evil you have caused, Luo Guang said unhappily. Now that you are ready, it's time to get started, right? He moved his arms and legs to get ready for battle. The first seat shook his head and said, I don't want to fight with you. To be honest, fighting is not something I am good at. I am better at research. He stood up and led the way, saying, follow me. Luo Guang remained vigilant and did not disperse the clones. His multitasking ability was already perfect, and controlling the clones would not affect his own battle. However, he did not launch a sneak attack while the opponent's back was turned to him, and followed him at a distance with his clone. The first person came to the door at the end of the large room, turned around and said, by the way, let me introduce myself again. I am the founder of this organization, my name is Tiankai. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 600. As soon as the voice fell, the locked door creaked and slowly opened, and white mist poured out from inside. In addition to eliminating the 2nd to 12th seats, this door also needs the first seat to become younger voice print verification before it can be opened. Luo Guang couldn't help but feel fortunate that he was a gentleman and didn't take advantage of the enemy's back to attack to get the upper hand, which also made him choose the timing more carefully later. He followed the other party in with his clone. It was as cold as a cold storage, but it didn't affect his actions, so this environment should not be an enemy trap. The walls were full of flickering LED lights, which looked somewhat similar to the server room. There was a cylinder in the middle, with a layer of white mist on the outside. Luo Guang couldn't see what was inside, and the scan couldn't penetrate it. So he asked tentatively, the key to evolution is in that cylinder? Shouldn't it be in the box? The first seat laughed and said, it's called a key, but it's just a metaphor. It contains the results of my research over the past 500 years. Now I just need a pioneer to use the key to provide data to confirm the evolutionary path of mankind, and then I can mass-produce biochemical viruses or other things that will allow all mankind to evolve. Luo Guang frowned and said, do you want to cause another biochemical crisis? The first seat shook his head frantically and explained quickly, no, I just want to give evolution to every human being equally so that humans can evolve. He didn't seem to want to anger Luo Guang, and added carefully, the reason why the biochemical crisis incident makes humans hate it is because of those biochemical creatures, but what if this biochemical crisis can make infected humans evolve? Is it still a disaster? That is a gift from God, it should be a revelation. Luo Guang felt that after the other party merged his emotions back, his mind seemed to be in trouble. He continued to ask, what is your specific plan? What exactly is the so-called key? The first seat regained his composure, took a deep breath, and said, "To answer your first question, I must first answer your second question." He fell into memories and began to explain what he had planned for so many years. Humanity stopped evolving a long time ago, and even degenerated. This makes me anxious. Why are you anxious about this? Luo Guang couldn't help but interrupt the other party strangely. Who would be bored to think about this? Don't you understand? This is a major event for all mankind. The first seat's expression was distorted, and veins on his forehead bulged. He said angrily, "Let mankind evolve. Save mankind. This is my mission, this is the enlightenment given to me by God." So you changed your name to Tiankai. Luo Guang didn't think that any parents would change their children's names like this. The first seat smiled in agreement. Yes, from the day God gave me the mission, I started to act. The first thing I had to solve was the problem of life, because human life is too short. As a result, he naturally succeeded, but he stopped talking here. Luo Guang would not miss this question and asked further. The first seat answered, "Biochemical viruses and other microorganisms can keep me alive today." Luo Guang nodded and agreed with the other party's statement. Although he has not been tested, his natural lifespan is definitely much longer than that of ordinary people, and so far, there has been no sign of aging in the cells in his body. However, the other party answered questions in detail before, but here he was vague and did not prepare to answer his questions. Luo Guang couldn't help but suspect that the other party's survival to this day was not as simple as he said, and he didn't say it out loud to avoid doubts. Seeing that Luo Guang didn't ask any more questions, the first seat continued his words, "My business is fine, let's go back to the original question." He said, "The key to evolution is actually a system?" System? Luo Guang raised his eyebrows, and he couldn't help but think of the system in his brain. Don't all the computers in the outside world have an operating system? The human brain is more sophisticated and high performance than a computer. The first seat tried to explain from an easy-to-understand perspective, and continued, "But we humans have not yet been able to fully develop our own brains, nor can we accurately and autonomously control the various human systems of the body. So the system you are talking about is developed for the human brain." Luo Guang thought that his system relied on himself to provide computing and power, just like a computer provides hardware for the system software to use. He remembered that when the system called itself, it also mentioned words such as biological system programs. The first seat looked like he saw a confidant, showing a childlike smile, and said, "That's right. This system allows people to control themselves like controlling a computer, such as height and weight can be adjusted through bone growth period and nutrient absorption rate, and for example, cancer cells in the body can be detected in time, allowing people to receive timely treatment, etc." Luo Guang nodded, and there would be no problems such as height anxiety and weight anxiety at that time. Early detection of cancerous tissue can also save many lives? He asked, "But what does this have to do with evolution?" The first seat showed a sad look and asked back, "Didn't you think of it? You often deal with biochemical viruses." Before Luo Guang answered, his expression changed and he said with relief, "No, you are a pure human, so it's normal that you didn't think of this at the first time. It's not that there is something wrong with your brain." What does it mean? In fact, Luo Guang had thought of it from the other party's words, but he wanted to hear a definite answer from the other party. This makes it easier to distinguish the truth from the false. The words of the first seat also matched what Luo Guang thought in his mind, and he replied, "S-level adapters can basically coexist with biochemical viruses or other microorganisms. Our organization can formulate a suitable fusion plan for them. But after the fusion, the viruses in their bodies will basically not change." He looked at Luo Guang's thoughtful look and said, "So if they have a system, they can adjust the microorganisms that have merged with themselves, making themselves stronger and crossing the threshold of evolution. The person who knows oneself best is oneself, so the microorganism that suits oneself best must be adjusted by oneself, such as the Shinra virus. When Luo Guang heard this, he felt more and more that what the other party said was his system. He asked, "Is this the key to evolution?" "That's right," the first seat nodded. "Have you only made one system in all these years?" "This is the first work, so it naturally takes a lot of time. It's not easy to mass produce, right? Otherwise, there wouldn't be only one system in all these years." The first seat nodded and said, "That's right, this will also be the only system. In order for all mankind to evolve, I need you to use the system to fuse biochemical viruses and evolve to the next stage of mankind as a pioneer. Then I will extract your genes and research viruses that are suitable for humans all over the world." Luo Guang suddenly asked a question, "You keep saying that you want to adapt to humans all over the world, so why do you cause a biochemical crisis? Those who sacrificed don't can I enjoy evolution?" "Sorry, I didn't explain it clearly." The first seat leaned forward slightly and explained, "Not everyone is qualified to evolve. The suitable humans are those who can survive the disaster, not the kind of waste who eat and eat." As he spoke, he cried, "I don't want to abandon them, but if I don't do this, after the evolution is completed, there will be a civil war between the new and old humans, and a large number of people will be sacrificed at that time." He hoped that humans would immediately invest in their own research and development and production after evolution, promote the progress of human civilization, and go to the universe to open up new horizons, rather than wasting time and lives on the same kind of civil war. Luo Guang understood what the other party meant and said, "I understand. If I want to get this key, how do I go?" "Jump into the cylinder." The first seat's tears did not stop, but his mouth showed the brightest smile. He controlled the control panel under the cylinder, and soon a chair rose from under the floor. "This is an electric torture chair. What is the needle on the helmet above?" Luo Guang felt that the chair was simply used for execution. The first seat also knew that the shape of the chair was not good, and patiently explained, "This chair is used to fix the body, because injecting the system into the brain will cause great pain. Once the needle breaks, it will be troublesome. The S-level adapter has great strength, so even if the needle is specially made, it is easy to break." Luo Guang would not sit on it and let himself be controlled by others, so he planned to walk over and take the opportunity to destroy the system. His electric control ability just restrained these electronic instruments. That's right, from the beginning he didn't intend to accept the key to evolution. He said so much before just to collect information about the apocalypse plan so that he could destroy the plan in a targeted manner. However, he acted in a full set, pretending to be entangled, and didn't agree to this at the first time. Finally, after the other party persuaded him for the third time, Luo Guang agreed to sit on the chair to accept the system, and let the clones spread out to surround the other party. The first seat ignored the other clones, only looking at Luo Guang, and said, "Wait a minute, I will start the system first and get ready." He pressed a blue button, and the whole room was filled with the sound of processor operation and fans. Scan found the existence of other systems. Luo Guang paused, and the system's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. From the first day he got the system entered stealth mode and started scanning according to his needs to avoid encountering other people with the system. But the system has never found other people with the system, and Luo Guang has forgotten about it over time. Now the system has a reminder, which can only mean one thing. That is, the system developed by the Apocalypse organization is the same as the system he has. The first seat also showed a panic expression on his face at this time, because he saw various warning words appearing on the screen of the control panel, and the alarm in the room kept ringing. He shouted in panic, "What happened? Is there a problem with the system? Impossible. He had tested and tried to start the system before, and there was no problem at that time." Confirming the other party's system number, error, Database connection disconnected, warning. Luo Guang didn't know how to solve the system problem at this time, because the system was full of mysteries from the beginning, and he only thought that the system was a standard gift from God to the traverser. On the other side, the first seat stared at the screen with wide eyes, muttering, "Adapter number 00001S, name, Luo Guang." He turned around and looked at Luo Guang, who was looking at him curiously, his eyes flickering, and I don't know what he was thinking. Error, the system has irreversible damage, the detection module is damaged, entering emergency mode, unknown damage cannot be resolved. Luo Guang's expression was fake. He actually felt pain in his head, but it was still within the tolerable range. Suddenly, everything returned to calm. The sound of Luo Guang's brain system and the alarm in the room disappeared at the same time. System, he silently chanted his system in his mind, but there was no response. The first seat also found that the system he had developed with great difficulty was gone, and the hard disk where the system was stored in electronic form was empty. "Where is my system?" He looked at the screen and roared, and was hit to his knees, but soon he stood up with the help of the control panel, turned around and looked at Luo Guang. "Adaptive Evolution Protection System." Luo Guang said the name of his system. The first seat did not say what the name of the system he developed was. He stared at Luo Guang and said, "Who are you? Why did your name appear on the control panel screen? Why do you know the name of the system I developed? His system should be ownerless, and the so-called adapter code should not appear." Luo Guang had some guesses in his mind. Judging from the other party's words and the fact that his system did not respond, both systems were now gone. He couldn't help but think of the term time paradox. The systems of both parties are actually the same system. When they meet, a paradox occurs, so the two systems disappear at the same time. Luo Guang also has an idea of where the disappeared system went. The space-time paradox that appeared was forcibly eliminated, and the system became one again, and then returned to the past and descended on himself, who traveled to this world. If this premise is correct, he can also explain the previous doubts. Why does the database of his system have so many virus data that he will encounter in the future? It is because it uses the virus database from the Future Apocalypse Organization. The Apocalypse Organization has a history of 500 years and has been continuously researching and collecting biochemical viruses. Its database is naturally the largest and most complete. Neither he nor the system can actively call the data in the database, perhaps because this database comes from the database of the Future Apocalypse Organization. Luo Guang looked at the first seat and said, "I am who I am. There is nothing wrong with the information investigated by your Apocalypse Organization." The first seat asked, "Why did the system I developed disappear? Why do you know the full name of the system?" Luo Guang replied, "Your goal has been achieved long ago. You don't need to cause a biochemical crisis, let alone sacrifice so many people." "What do you mean by that?" The first seat had a distorted expression and stared at Luo Guang. "It's just that your key to evolution has always been in my possession. It's meaningless for you to do so many things before." "Impossible." The first seat didn't believe this and shouted, "Since you already had the system, why haven't you evolved to the next stage of human beings?" Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 601. Taiwan Novel Network. Rightward arrow. Evolution? I'm actually not very interested in this. Luo Guang looked indifferent and looked very unbeatable. He became stronger not for some illusory thing like human evolution, but to protect the people he liked. The first person was in disbelief. Anger rushed to his forehead and roared, "You are like a person sitting on a golden mountain without knowing it. You are wasting the mission given to you by God." Luo Guang knew that the negotiations between the two parties had broken down, so he naturally started to use rubbish to pave the way. "Sorry, I am a social animal. I am already very tired from living, and I have no time to care about evolution, which is not a living thing. The first person fell into silence when he heard this. He looked at Luo Guang and suddenly thought of something. The Wang family had reported that Luo Guang had combat power that far exceeded S level. Wang Wei also misunderstood that Luo Guang was already an Omega level. Although the opponent claims to have no ambitions, his fighting ability is real. This gave him a glimmer of hope. He ignored Luo Guang's nonsense and asked excitedly, "How far has your physical fitness reached? Have you passed the threshold of 33? No, Luo Guang didn't hide it, but as long as he entered the regular enhanced state, he could easily cross this line. The first person was about to reply when his eyes suddenly became foggy, his mouth opened slightly and he made a sound of unknown meaning. But Luo Guang did not take the opportunity to launch an attack. He was controlling Wu Song's clone to insert a mobile hard drive into the computer in this room. He planned to let the Red Emperor take over the computers here, and then steal the huge database of the Apocalypse organization. Fortunately, Luo Guang didn't make a sneak attack, because the first seat returned to normal in the blink of an eye. "That's it," the first seat said excitedly, "you are not a pure human being. You have developed the most suitable biochemical virus." "I didn't, don't talk nonsense," Luo Guang immediately denied it. "I said that saving mankind and allowing mankind to evolve is the mission given to me by God. You can't lie to me." The first seat showed a greedy look on his face, looked at Luo Guang and said, "I just received enlightenment, God has already told me about you." Looking at each other, his eyes suddenly glowed with blinding white light. Luo Guang stopped attacking, and the other clones fell to the ground like robots that were powered off. His consciousness fell into darkness. There was a slight itching feeling on his face, and Luo Guang raised his hand to touch his face. "It feels plush, just like a doll, but feels warm to the touch, indicating that this is not a toy doll. The itching is still there, it's not continuous, but it comes on and off." He opened his hazy eyes and glanced to the left, when a cute beast appeared in his eyes. Meow! The cute beast opened its eyes when it saw Luo Guang and made a cute sound. Meow! This feeble cry came from Luo Guang, which meant that he knew. He stretched and got up to get ready for work. After Luo Guang graduated, he worked in a company for several years, doing the same thing year after year. Today was the same as usual. After getting up, he brushed his teeth and poured water and food for his cat. After finally confirming that the cat's litter box did not need to be scooped out to replace the cat's litter, he picked up the special bread that he had bought in advance when he went home last night and ate it. After breakfast, Luo Guang looked at the time, left the rental house, and hurried to work. The sky was gray, so he ran all the way to the subway station, battled wits with the crowd, and successfully squeezed onto the subway. Today I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by men, so I don't have to raise my hands in a gesture of surrender. But having said that, squeezing into the subway today is much easier than before. Is it the result of regular exercise? Luo Guang thought to himself and didn't care too much. He successfully clocked in before 7:30 and returned to his office seat. Without taking a breath, he opened the document and started working. He was not the first one. There were already people working around him, and the only sound in the huge office area was the sound of typing on keyboards. No one said hello, and no one knew how to chat. This was what Luo Guang saw every day, and he had become accustomed to it. At around 9 o'clock, the manager walked out of the office with a pile of information. "He who can do the hard work, leave this to you." The manager threw the things directly on Luo Guang's clean desk, and then took the secretary out. Luo Guang picked up the top file. The work inside was not his responsibility, but the manager's secretary's responsibility. He didn't need to think too much to know that the manager was going to take his secretary out to rent a hotel at public expense again. But so what? Now that the economy is not good, can he refuse in order to keep this job? Luo Guang could only sigh in his heart and complain about these troubles. He looked out the window, the sky was still gloomy. After eating something simple at noon, Luo Guang continued working until after 9 o'clock in the evening. He finished his work and went home. Eat, pet the cat, take a bath, sleep. Like all these years, the day passed like this. The next day, the same process. But when the manager came over and wanted to leave the work of himself and his secretary to Luo Guang, a fresh and beautiful prince came over. Hey, drive me to my old place. The keys to $1 million luxury car were thrown on Luo Guang's desk. Luo Guang looked at the manager, who still had the work he had just thrown at him. The manager looked at the prince flatteringly and said, "Oh, why did the young master come to inspect? Do you need me to help?" The prince said impatiently, "Manager Chen, didn't you hear what I just said? Lend me your people." "Yes, yes, yes." Manager Chen nodded like a chicken pecking at rice, picked up the documents that had just been placed on Luo Guang's desk, and handed the work to another unlucky guy. "Let's go," the prince said to the manager, then turned around and left. Luo Guang picked up the key and followed him. He was not valued by the prince, but he was easygoing and could control his mouth. Whenever the boss was watching closely, the prince would ask Luo Guang to drive, pretending to go out for socializing and business talks, but in fact he was going out to play. This may be a good thing for some people, betting on the future. But for Luo Guang, this means that he can't come back tonight and has to be ready for orders at any time. There is no cat to play, and no leave after staying up all night. It's annoying, Luo Guang thought in his heart. He drove the prince to the villa in the suburbs, and his mission had just begun. He changed to a car worth more than 500,000 yuan, took the list given by the prince, and went to take the other party's playmates home one by one. The prince is going to have a party tonight and have fun. Luo Guang was just a bystander, watching a man with multiple women living a life of drunkenness and indulging their animal desires in front of him, without a single ripple in his heart. The next day, after sending the prince and others back, he immediately returned to the office, but was still late and had to be fined again. Manager Chen scolded Luo Guang for being late, and then threw all the work to Luo Guang. The reason was simple. He was jealous that Luo Guang could go out with the prince. At the same time, Luo Guang was the easiest to bully among his subordinates and had the best work ability. Luo Guang had hundreds of ways to slack off in his mind, but he could only think about it in his mind and could only imagine his future of breaking this kind of life. However, the reality was like this every day and every month. Luo Guang was getting more and more tired, and the cat was getting less and less. Maybe it was because of too much pressure, but he, who used to fall asleep as soon as he fell into bed, had strange dreams recently, dreaming that he traveled to the world of Resident Evil. Another 5 years, and it was the 10th year of work. In the middle of the night, Luo Guang suddenly woke up. He looked out the window. This was the first time he saw it raining outside, even though it was cloudy for the previous 5 years. He touched the watermarks on his face. It was not because he opened the window that his face was wet, but because tears fell unconsciously. The calico cat came to his side and rubbed his legs, meowing in his mouth, as if it could also feel Luo Guang's mood. It was 7 o'clock, and Luo Guang hadn't moved yet. He just kept watching the lightning and thunder outside the window. He felt that something in his heart was struggling, trying to break free from the shackles and break out of the cocoon. The dream of traveling through time continued, and he could still remember the story in the dream. But it was still a dream after all, and he didn't have any superpowers. He was also tired, and reached out to open the window. The rental house was on the 18th floor, which was high enough. Suddenly, a shrill cat cry interrupted Luo Guang's thoughts. Then he felt a pain in his calf, and he looked down and saw that the cat had bitten him. The wound was not deep, and Luo Guang did not treat it. How could people who keep cats not be injured? Meow. Meow, Sanhua answered his question affirmatively. The man and the cat kept meowing. Finally, Luo Guang nodded, took a deep breath, and the haze in his eyes was swept away. The self in the dream was the person he hoped he could become, starting from today. Let's go, let's solve this. After saying that, he left the rental house and walked towards the company. Luo Guang. Where have you been? Why are you going to work now? Manager Chen looked impatient, and he cursed at Luo Guang, who was soaked all over. It's none of your business, Luo Guang said calmly, without making a fuss. The change in his mentality did not make him angry, but indifferent. How can you talk to your superior like this? Manager Chen was stunned at first, then roared in a voice that could be heard by the entire office area. Luo Guang sneered and said, you go out for an affair every day, and you still have the nerve to scream. His voice was not loud, anyway. This was something that all the social animals in the office area knew. You. Get out of here. Luo Guang walked forward directly and knocked Manager Chen, a drunkard, out, and there was no sound immediately. No one in the office area said anything in this conflict, and they didn't even move their heads, working hard. Luo Guang didn't pay attention to others either. He came back today just to fight. The prince walked in yawning, without even looking at Manager Chen, who was lying not far away, and threw the car keys in the direction of Luo Guang. Today, he didn't aim well, and hit Luo Guang on the head and fell to the ground. The prince said foul-mouthed, hey. This key is very expensive, you can't afford to pay for it if it breaks. He didn't know Luo Guang's name. In his eyes, the other party was He. Luo Guang picked up the key and said, since it's so expensive, I'll give it back to you. What? The prince didn't finish his words before his head was hit by the key. Luo Guang ignored the two people who lost their lives and walked towards the boss's office on the top floor. The secretary stopped him, killed him. The security came, killed him. Luo Guang kicked the door of the boss's office open and saw the face of the first seat. You ant, do you know what you did? The boss slapped the table, stood up, pointed at Luo Guang and shouted, get out. You should be the one to get out, right? First seat, Luo Guang said, I'm the master of my own world. Get out. When he knocked Manager Chen away, he knew he was in a dream, and he remembered the promise he made to Jill and Ashley. The first seat's face was distorted, as if he was pushed away by an invisible force, and he directly broke through the floor-to-ceiling glass behind him, fell from the air, and broke into a meat pie. The rain in the sky became lighter, and the sun came out. Luo Guang closed his eyes and opened them again, and saw the first seat standing next to the control panel. The clone also stood up from the ground. Is this a mental attack? An illusion attack? He returned to reality and immediately analyzed the situation. It was not a dream that he traveled to this world, but returning to the original world was what happened in the dream. Impossible. I, who was helped by God, actually lost to you, who gave up the opportunity to evolve. The first seat spit out blood, and it was obvious that he was seriously injured. It's not that he is not good at fighting, but he is not good at the kind of head-on, muscle-to-muscle fighting. The mental power accumulated over the years is his trump card. According to the command of the heaven, the first seat let Luo Guang fall into the dream he had woven. As long as Luo Guang died in the dream, the real body would be like a soul out of the body, not much different from those vegetative people. At that time, he would be able to take over Luo Guang's body. Why didn't the first seat directly crush Luo Guang with his mental power? First, he couldn't do it. Because Luo Guang's mental power was not weak, Luo Guang could send his clone to destroy him while resisting mental attacks. Second, if that method was used, Luo Guang's body would also die, and he would die after taking over his body. This ability to take over other bodies is the reason why the first seat can live for 500 years, and taking over Luo Guang's body is also the last link in his plan. He would have completed the possession of Luo Guang's body without anyone noticing when Luo Guang received the system and was in a weak state. Unfortunately, the plan could not keep up with the changes, and the system disappeared. The first seat also saw Luo Guang's murderous intention, and the two sides must fight, so it is natural to strike first. Time passed very quickly in the dream, but the first seat in the dream also had to spend the same amount of time as Luo Guang. That is to say, in reality, it was only 5 minutes, but he and Luo Guang had spent 5 years in the dream. The first seat couldn't wait for Luo Guang to die of old age in the dream. So he turned into a boss and secretly used tricks to force Luo Guang to death, but he didn't expect Luo Guang to have such a strong willpower and hold on for 5 years. He was about to succeed, but failed in the end. Luo Guang didn't expect that he could find himself in the end, not because of Jill and Ashley, but because of the cat he would never see again. It wasn't because there was any problem with his relationship with the two, but because he couldn't remember Jill and Ashley at all in the dream. There was no memory related to them that could be triggered in the mysterious country, and even the word Resident Evil was blocked by the first seat. After hearing what the other party said, Luo Guang replied, "I have already experienced those dirty tricks you arranged. If I hadn't traveled to this world, I would have started a different life just like in my dream." On the day he traveled through time, he planned to play a big game before going to bed. He had found someone to get evidence of the affair between the manager and the secretary, and it would be sent to the manager's wife's mobile phone tomorrow. As for the incident with the prince, Luo Guang also collected a lot of evidence. He would hand over the illegal part to the police uncle to solve, and he would naturally have a good talk with the company boss for the other part. Of course, he had no power and influence, and the above things might fail. By then, he was also mentally prepared to do more radical things, and he could also use the selected street lights. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 602. The first seat glimpsed the most painful experience in Luo Guang's memory, and learned that Luo Guang was not from this world, but he felt even more uncomfortable after knowing this. Because this further proves that Luo Guang is the destined person sent to him by the superiors to complete his mission. Luo Guang didn't waste any more nonsense and charged towards the enemy. This farce must end. Naturally, the first seat will not surrender and stares at Luo Guang. This is his way of locking onto his enemy, so he can lock onto his attack target just by looking past him. However, the eyes will not glow when locked, and will only light up when attacking. Luo Guang closed his eyes and calmed his mind. It sounds very fantasy and there is no specific operation. This is actually the case, because he uses his mental power more to control his clones. Fortunately, he still has Jasmine, the former leader of the Void Cult, who can help with sparring so that he can learn some tricks. Luo Guang was tricked before because he didn't expect that the first seat was best at mental power, which almost made him capsize in the gutter. It's useless to close your eyes, the first seat's eyes glowed, shooting towards Luo Guang's head. According to his research, the human soul is stored in the brain, and mental power cannot be blocked by physical means. Luo Guang knew this, and all he could do was focus all his mental energy on defense. He silently recited his promise to Jill and Ashley, constantly recalled the entanglement between the three of them, and tried to isolate the enemy's mental attacks as much as possible. This is a stupid method he learned from sparring with Jasmine, because he can't condense his mental power into a shield to block the enemy's mental attacks. Luo Guang's willpower itself is beyond ordinary people. Maybe some people think that what he endured is not unacceptable, and there are more people who are worse than him. But this varies from person to person, and whether it will make people stronger will also vary from person to person. Back to the spiritual battle between the two. With the help of God, First Seat's mental power far exceeded that of normal humans, but he was unable to immediately break through Luo Guang's defense. Under this situation, Luo Guang's mental power was continuously tempered, making his mental power more and more solid. Luo Guang still closed his eyes, and used the radio wave radar scanning ability to locate the enemy and fight to the front of the first seat. He was about to attack when a sharp pain suddenly appeared in his head, but he had been prepared and did not stop attacking because of the sudden pain. The first seat suddenly burst out with a stronger mental attack and also performed evasive actions. "Have you been eating shit for the past 500 years? Luo Guang instinctively made a taunting attack, punching a big hole in the left arm of the first seat and the cylinder behind his back. The unknown liquid inside leaked out and soaked the entire room. The first seat has basically been studying how to evolve humans for the past 500 years, and has never encountered an enemy that threatens him. Naturally, he is not good at fighting. The reason why his mental power is so strong is also because of one of his research topics, the soul. His arms quickly grew out, but he didn't plan on fighting melee or using other attacks. Instead, he planned to escape far away while the nutrient solution spurted out and caused chaos. However, the idea is beautiful, but the reality is cruel. The foot he had just stepped out was suddenly pulled by something, making it impossible for him to stay away from Luo Guang. "What?" The first seat made a sound like a fish. He looked down and saw that the nutrient solution was wrapped around his legs as if it was alive. This is because Luo Guang had previously analyzed the biochemical bacteria in Wang Huimei's body to give his Shinra virus the ability to control water. Go to hell! Luo Guang's body sparkled with electricity, and the whole room turned white as if it were lit by the sun. The first seat's wide-eyed eyes were directly illuminated by strong light, and the retinas were burned. Suddenly, both eyes lost their vision and turned white. Powerful high-voltage current poured into the first seat's body along with the nutrient solution, destroying the cells in his body. Luo Guang's tight mental defense noticed that the enemy's mental attack had disappeared, so he concentrated on controlling the current to accurately inject it into the enemy's body without any hesitation, without causing any waste. There was a burning smell coming from the enemy, but Luo Guang did not relax his attack intensity, and at the same time let Fukato, who was closest to the enemy, launch the attack. The first seat screamed. The high-voltage current was destroying every part of his body, but there was nothing he could do about it. Because of the pain and the current attack on his brain, he couldn't concentrate at all to continue using mental attacks. The same is true for the body, which can only tremble continuously and cannot effectively fight back or take any action. Luo Guang and Fukato's clone smashed the first seat's body together to ensure that the enemy would not be resurrected. He breathed out and looked around. He and the other clones were the only ones left here, but he still re-established his mental defense. However, the enemy did have no backup plan, and the battle ended without any danger. The next step was to deal with the aftermath. Luo Guang did not rest and continued to control Wu Song's clone to confirm the situation on the Red Emperor's side. He also used the equipment of the Apocalypse organization to confirm the situation outside. The battle outside continues. Although this area has basically gathered all the combat power of the Apocalypse organization, it is already at the end of the war. The enemy became weaker and weaker as they fought. On the other hand, the coalition soldiers had sufficient manpower, coupled with the activeness of Gim's troops and others, they became more courageous as they fought. As for the Red Emperor, the computer system of the Apocalypse organization did not have artificial intelligence, and its internal firewall could not stop the Red Emperor's attack at all, and was quickly breached. She was moving various materials according to Luo Guang's instructions, and at the same time clearing them out to ensure that the information inside the Apocalypse organization would not be abused by others. After that, he would gradually release the technology in the Apocalypse organization that was beneficial to mankind for the benefit of mankind. After Luo Guang dealt with the affairs of the Apocalypse organization headquarters, he immediately ran to the ground. He wanted to clear all the intelligence and evidence. The best way was naturally to self-destruct the entire headquarters. In fact, at the moment of the death of the first seat, the self-destruction system of the Apocalypse organization headquarters was immediately activated. But the Red Emperor had the previous experience, and this time he successfully intercepted the self-destruction program. Earthquake, Jill, who led the joint army to the entrance of the Apocalypse Organization headquarters, felt the violent vibration from deep underground and immediately became alert. She immediately reported the situation and asked the joint army not to approach this area first, but she ran to the enemy headquarters without hesitation because she was worried about Luo Guang. The door was locked. Jill anxiously looked for a way to open it, but she couldn't find any breakthrough. Just when she was in a state of panic, the door opened by itself, and the person she had been worried about ran out. In addition to Luo Guang, Wu Song's clone was also there, and the other clones were absorbed back into the body to replenish the energy consumed before. Jill, Luo Guang saw the other party and immediately shouted, "Run, the enemy has activated the self-destruction program of the base." He grabbed Jill's hand and ran away. The vibration became more and more intense, and the joint army was also frightened by the scene and immediately evacuated far away. The ground began to collapse, and a huge hole like an abyss appeared in front of everyone. Luo Guang, Leon ran over, his face was very happy, and he punched Luo Guang in the chest and said, "You guys are the center of attention again." There were several people following behind him. Chris, Claire, Steve, Pierce, Parker, Shiva, and Mela were still alive, but several of them were injured. Mara, whose thigh was injured, and Pierce were close to each other, looking very close. Although it was normal for Mara to support Pierce because of her injured leg, the way Mara held Pierce's arm with both hands showed that their relationship had progressed. Claire and Steve on the other side seemed to have made progress as well, and they stood together, holding hands. Luo Guang glanced around and was very happy to see that his friends were all fine. As for the GIM's troops, he could sense the Shinra virus in them and confirm the situation. Hank's elite troops can be said to have been fighting in the most intense battle zone, so there were naturally casualties. Among them, some people in the death squad were injured but no one died this time, so Hank could finally get rid of the name of the death squad. Carlos Angel Squad and the Death Squad led by Jason worked together and there were no casualties. The third team, the Homo sapiens Squad, was ambushed by 3 automatic machine gun turrets at the same time when rescuing the trapped troops of the mysterious country, and only one person survived. Hector, the blaster of the Wolf team, sacrificed himself to protect Wolf Mom. While providing sniper cover, Sienna of the Echo Squad was ambushed by the Apocalypse Organization. She fought back desperately, but was outnumbered and died before her teammates arrived. The miscellaneous team encountered 3 special biochemical weapons wearing heavy armor. Facing the enemy's rockets, howitzers and other weapons, they tried their best to die with the enemy, and finally the whole army was wiped out. In the end, only Tanya survived in Tanya's team, because her team was unlucky to meet an S-level adapter who came to support by airdrop. In the end, it was Tanya's explosion that successfully solved the enemy. Other teams also had different casualties. After coming out, Luo Guang asked Wu Song's clone to find them, and then took his men back to the base. The combat effectiveness of the GIM's troops far exceeded that of ordinary people, and there were also some extraordinary performances, so in order to avoid trouble, he let them go back to the South African base first. As the only survivor of the Apocalypse Organization headquarters, Luo Guang returned to the front-line base and was naturally applauded and welcomed by all the staff. Although unlike the company turmoil, he basically quelled the biochemical crisis around the world by eliminating the enemy leader. However, after the Apocalypse Organization was eliminated this time, the vaccine and antidote of the GIM's troops can be officially put into production and use, so Luo Guang's completion of the mission can be said to be the turning point of this biochemical crisis. Although victory makes people happy, the work that should be done still needs to be done, such as holding meetings. Luo Guang and Li Jing and the heads of other countries and organizations went online together to hold meetings with leaders of various countries. The 12th seat is the leader of the Apocalypse Organization. I killed them and fought them for 300 rounds. Finally, I eliminated these enemies. Luo Guang continued to tell the story and explain the destruction of the Apocalypse Organization headquarters. What I didn't expect was that these people installed life detectors in their hearts. As long as they all died, their base would start the self-destruction program. President Adam nodded. He did not doubt this statement, because when Luo Guang and his team launched the general attack, they were also attacking the Apocalypse base in the country and encountered the same situation. The members of the Apocalypse are all crazy. In order to avoid being caught, they often self-destruct, and sometimes even raze the entire base to the ground. Other countries have also encountered these situations, so Luo Guang does not need to order the leaders of the countries controlled by the X organization to make statements to persuade others. The next thing is post-disaster reconstruction. After the Secretary General of the United Nations confirmed that the actions against the Apocalypse Organization were successful, he raised the next topic. He did not convene any General Assembly to discuss, but decided to take this opportunity to discuss a draft. Because the scope of the biochemical crisis incident was wider and more serious than the previous company chaos, many countries were temporarily unable to communicate. In order to rebuild the world order as soon as possible, the Secretary General decided to discuss the post-disaster reconstruction here first. O'Brien was the first to speak, saying, "We will cooperate with the GIMS troops and Terra Sephir to produce and distribute vaccines and antidotes. The BSAT organization does not have its own production department, but Terra Sephir has it, and the GIMS troops also have it." However, the drug production factories of the GIMS troops were actually invested and established by Luo Guang in the mysterious country that year, and they were not under the name of the GIMS troops. The Secretary General of the United Nations said, "Okay, I hope that factories in various countries can also produce medicines as soon as possible." After the assault began, Luo Guang sent the formula of the vaccine and antidote to others and asked them to prepare the means of production. A group of national leaders immediately arranged this matter. The Secretary General decided to solve the Nepal issue first, saying, "When Nepal was in chaos before, Nepalese workers from all over the world went back to rebuild the country. Now it is occupied by the Apocalypse Organization. I think there are not many Nepalese left." Marshal Li Jing said, "Our joint army did not find any civilians in the battle." The Secretary General thanked him and said, "Maybe there are still Nepalese alive, but there are definitely not many, so I hope to turn this piece of land into an anti-biochemical museum, and the remaining Nepalese can also work and live here. In fact, the United Nations hopes to protect the independence of this land, but it is not enough to rely on a few Nepalese." The mysterious country took the lead in expressing its approval of this plan. Perhaps it seems unfair for these big countries to decide the fate of Nepal in a few words, but if Nepal is allowed to rebuild its country on its own as before, it will be eaten away by India in a few minutes. The mysterious country is not very interested in that piece of land, but it does not want to be occupied by India. President Adam nodded, indicating that he basically agreed with the plan, and put forward his own idea. "I hope that the United Nations will take the lead and we will jointly develop and build an anti-biological museum park." Although the headquarters of the Apocalypse Organization was destroyed, there is still meaning in excavation. At the same time, the Apocalypse Organization also used a large number of biological weapons in this battle, so he wants to get involved and get the data of biological weapons, etc. He is not going to start a biochemical crisis again, but he cannot have something that others have. With the statements of these two major countries, others have no objections, but they all express their intention to invest here and want to get a share of the pie. The Secretary General knew their plan, but did not point it out, but discussed the next country that lost contact. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 604. O'Brien and Luo Guang had no way to intervene in the arrangements for those countries that had lost contact, So they could only watch from the sidelines when the leaders of various countries were discussing and provide some professional opinions on anti-biochemical crisis. Perhaps because the countries had just worked together to resolve the world crisis, they did not include too many national interests in the discussion, so they quickly discussed a basic plan. To put it simply, capable countries first eliminate the biochemical monsters within each country and inject biochemical virus vaccines to all the people to stabilize the domestic situation, and then go to the nearest countries that have lost contact to provide support and re-establish contact. In order not to disrupt the current international situation and territory, the United Nations dispatched an observer mission to supervise the support operations. After the meeting, Luo Guang and other members of the Protagonist group stayed in Nepal for nearly a month. Their daily job was to clean the underground passages under the area to ensure that no fish slipped through the net. When the mission was officially over, Luo Guang took his wife back to the BSA Africa branch building and hugged Ashley, who came towards her. Jilka let the two of them hug each other for a minute before saying, "Okay, this is the gate, and everyone is watching." Ashley blushed, let go of Luo Guang, and wiped her tears. "Oh, I understand." Without saying a word, Luo Guang hugged the two of them, one on the left and the other on the right, and said, "What's the point of being embarrassed? Let them be envious. If he is not embarrassed, it is others who are embarrassed, and he is now the head of the branch, who dares to gossip behind his back." The two of them looked at each other and smiled, and did not refuse. Luo Guang just hugged each other and returned to his office. Ashley changed her face in a second, entered working mode, and said, "Luo Guang, O'Brien contacted me half an hour ago and asked you to contact him when you come back." Luo Guang didn't hesitate and immediately contacted O'Brien. "Is something wrong?" Luo Guang asked. O'Brien went straight to the point and said, "Although this biochemical crisis is over, the scars and impact it caused cannot be eliminated in a short time. According to conservative statistics, the population of Europe before the disaster was 726 million, and now it may only be 300 million. Not here. The most troublesome thing is that this biochemical crisis will be a devastating disaster for minors and the elderly. Their average ability to withstand disasters is definitely not as good as that of adults. Therefore, there are suddenly a large number of job vacancies in the market, and many companies may face bankruptcy due to manpower problems, not to mention the situation where all employees of some companies have turned into zombies due to the biochemical crisis. Industrial industries such as factories and industries are okay, because they will definitely get a large number of orders in the future, and they will have an advantage in recruiting labor. On the other hand, the financial sector has suffered a huge blow. Although the stock market is closed due to the emergency, it will definitely be green when it opens, and many people will look for the rooftop. All in all, it is not easy for the economies of various countries in the world to recover. The impact of this biochemical crisis is all round. This kind of problem is not within the scope of our BSA's responsibility, right? Luo Guang responded, saying, "This should be a headache for all countries and the United Nations, right? I know that the Secretary General found me in private before and told me a plan." "What's the plan?" "He wants to take this opportunity to expand the power of the United Nations." O'Brien actually feels that the Secretary General's idea is a bit whimsical, because without funding and support from other countries, the United Nations simply does not have much financial resources to use. Through our BSA organization, since the other party came to O'Brien, it must be related to the BSA organization, so Luo Guang asked this question. O'Brien replied, "Yes, he hopes to expand the size of our organization first, and then contact those countries that have lost their officialdom and suffered heavy losses. From this global joint action against the Apocalypse organization, the Secretary General feels that we should also take advantage of this reshuffle plan to establish an Earth government." Luo Guang sighed and said, "I agree with expanding the size of the BSA organization, but I disagree with the following things. The only reason we joined together before was because the Apocalypse organization caused public outrage, so it was attacked by people all over the world. He felt a little irritated. Humanity had just survived this disaster, and ambitious people couldn't wait to jump out. O'Brien also had the same view as Luo Guang. I think so too, but I'll leave this matter to you to worry about later. I'll say hello to you in advance. Luo Guang didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said, "Did you make the dumplings because of this jealousy?" He didn't expect that the other party would suddenly become playful. O'Brien smiled and said, "That's right, I'm going to retire after this incident is over anyway. Don't keep me waiting, come to the headquarters and take up my post as soon as possible." It is because he is about to leave office that he rarely makes a joke. When Luo Guang was in Nepal to wipe out the remnants of the apocalypse, the other party had already discussed this matter with him. The reason why he didn't wait until the situation calmed down before letting him take over was that O'Brien wanted to take this opportunity to hone his administrative skills. "I understand. I'll go to the headquarters after handling the affairs in Africa." O'Brien smiled and said, "Don't delay coming here for half a year just because you love your beloved wife." "Don't worry." Luo Guang chatted for a few more words and hung up the phone. Then he looked at Ashley and Jill and said, "It seems we have to prepare for moving. Half a year has passed and many things have changed." Luo Guang took over O'Brien's position and became the commander of the BSAT organization. Perhaps because of his reputation, all countries congratulated the change of leadership, and the resolution to expand the organization was easily passed. After he took over, he was busy dealing with the aftermath of the apocalypse incident, and also began to adjust the BSAT organization. The first thing to be reorganized was the BSAT organization's virus research department. Originally, this part was to cooperate with some other research institutes to let them develop various vaccines and viruses for the BSAT organization, but the actual effect was not good, and it always lagged behind the research institutes of other organizations. Of course, in fact, the GIMS Research Institute in Luo Guang's hands was too efficient. However, this did not prevent him from using this as an excuse to reorganize the entire virus research department, so that the BSAT organization could truly have its own research institute. First, Luo Guang asked the X organization to take advantage of the infighting among the companies in the Global Pharmaceutical Federation to take control of each company, and then he directly poached people from each company and used these talents to establish the BSA's virus research department. Since he had already targeted the companies in the Global Pharmaceutical Federation, he would not be polite, including the research institutes and research materials of those companies. Luo Guang did not let go of other parts of these pharmaceutical companies, allowing them to focus on the civilian market and provide funding for the BSAT organization. The BSAT organization has established a special marketing department, and combined with some previous measures, it has basically gotten rid of the situation of relying on sponsorship. Only in this way can their BSAT organization truly be independent and born only for antibiochemical, and not be used by ambitious people. The reason why Luo Guang did not integrate the GIMS Research Institute, the X Organization Research Institute and the BSAT Organization Research Institute together is that he does not want to put all his eggs in one basket. In addition to the Virus Research Department, the director of the BSAT Equipment Research and Development Department was also replaced by Quint Chechame, who has superb inventive talent. At the same time, Luo Guang provided a lot of high-end technical information from Umbrella and other organizations to Quint for research. The other party did not disappoint him, integrating all the technologies and developing a series of special equipment for BSA soldiers. Among them, the one that Luo Guang was most satisfied with was a tactical helmet numbered BTH-01. In addition to the defensive functions of general tactical helmets, this helmet also comes with a gas mask, micro battery, and network module, integrating various functions. The mask is composed of a transparent LCD screen, which automatically analyzes the biochemical monsters captured by the monitor, and then confirms its type and provides countermeasures based on the built-in database. In case of encountering a biochemical monster without data, the mask will also display analysis suggestions and references to increase the user's chance of survival. At the same time, this helmet also has a battlefield recorder and networking functions, so that the Red Emperor can monitor the execution of BSA soldiers' tasks and prevent them from being bribed by villains and other bad situations. Luo Guang is in a high position, but he has no time to monitor everyone under him, so asking the Red Emperor to assist is the best way. Luo Guang took over the position of commander, and Jill and Ashley followed Luo Guang to Terra Grigia City and settled in the apartment they bought in advance. Therefore, the African branch was replaced by Deputy Minister Magwan, who became the head of the African branch again, and the position of Deputy Minister was taken by Josh Stone, who had retired from the combat unit. Shiva's position did not change, but now she, like the people in the GIMS unit, has received Luo Guang's true teachings and is guarding the African branch for him. Chris has not retired in the North American branch, but the original successor has changed. Because Pierce applied for a transfer to the Far East branch to live with Mela, he will probably take over the position of the head of the Far East branch in the future. Chris has trained Pierce for so long, but ended up being a dowry for others. In fact, Pierce wanted Mela to work with the North American branch at first, but the number of agents in the Far East branch was limited. Once Mela, as the trump card, left, the strength of the Far East branch would be greatly reduced. He didn't want Mela to be embarrassed, and Chris also knew the situation of the Far East branch, so he let him go to the Far East branch. Although Pierce is not here, Chris's retirement plan has not been cancelled, because his eldest disciple Steve is now a man who can stand on his own. Steve also has no idea that he would feel unhappy if the spare tire took over. Because he and Claire finally broke through that layer of paper after the assault mission, and the two were together, so he naturally would not be dissatisfied with his brother-in-law's arrangement. As for other branches, except that the Oceania branch was completely wiped out and needed to be rebuilt, there were not many changes, so I will not describe them one by one here. After talking about the personnel transfer of the BSA organization, the next is the GIMS troops. Let's talk about the people Hank captured on the battlefield first. Luo Guang controlled Wu Song's clone to listen to Hank's explanation, and personally confirmed the situation of that person, and he also had some general judgment in his mind. First of all, after comparing the genes of the two, he can confirm that they are indeed related, and the other party is really Hank's daughter. Although Luo Guang has lost the system now, he finds that his ability to look into the body and control the Shinra virus is not entirely dependent on the system, and he can also achieve similar operations by relying on his own mental power. The main difference is that using system operations is like playing a third-person game, while using mental power is like playing a first-person game. Back to the matter of Hank's daughter, Luo Guang found out that the abbreviation of the name LH means female Hank, and relevant information can be found in the database of the Apocalypse organization, which also mentioned that she is Hank's daughter Mary. The reason why she was targeted was because the obstetrics and gynecology department of the hospital where she came from was controlled by the Apocalypse organization, but the purpose of capturing her was to mass-produce powerful soldiers like Hank for their own use. However, the mass production plan failed, and the entire plan was interrupted, and she was used as cannon fodder in the decisive battle. Hank and Lone Wolf took Mary and followed Wu Song's clone to go a little around and went to the Mother Nest base first. Since the Red Emperor has obtained the information of the Apocalypse organization, he will naturally perform memory surgery. Normally, modified and deleted memories are difficult to repair through surgery. But Luo Guang found the information of the first seed studying the soul from the Apocalypse information, which made it possible to restore Mary's memory before she was captured. However, Mary was still young when she was captured, so after recovering, Mary may only have the knowledge and cognition of a 5 or 6-year-old. Hank was shocked to hear the news and was at a loss for a moment, but in the end he decided to shoulder the responsibility of his father, agreed to the operation and contacted his boss Luo Guang on the spot to resign. Resignation here does not mean leaving the front line to retire and become an instructor. Hank wants to spend the rest of his time with his daughter. In fact, after Luo Guang learned about Hank's past and confirmed Mary's identity, he was mentally prepared for this, so he agreed to Hank's retirement application without much thought. However, he still said that the position of instructor would be reserved for him, and he would help him solve problems such as money and house. Hank has actually saved a lot of money working in the GIM's army over the years. After all, he has no hobbies, but he did not refuse the kindness of his boss. So the current death squad will be led by Tanya, and Lone Wolf will assist. Lone Wolf is not dissatisfied with this arrangement. He is self-aware and knows that he is better at assisting others than being a captain. Other elite teams have also undergone a certain degree of reorganization or reconstruction due to casualties in battle. For example, the organization of the miscellaneous team and Tanya team was cancelled, and although there was only one person left in the Sapiens team, that person rejected Carlos' invitation and hoped to rebuild their team. Wusong's clone took the Lone Wolf and others back to the GIM's South African base, and Caddy, Jack, and Shirley all greeted him at the door. "I'm back." Luo Guang controlled the clone to report safety to Caddy, who was crying with joy. Caddy hugged him directly and said happily, "Welcome back." Although it was cruel, Luo Guang's decision did not change, but he also left Caddy and Jack for half a year to leave them with good memories. During this period, the GIM's troops were also developing rapidly. There were special training bases on all continents in the world, specializing in training military police and civilians of various countries in various anti-biochemical knowledge. As a result, the GIM's troops have been continuously developed and no longer need Luo Guang's blood transfusion, becoming the world's second largest anti-biochemical armed force after BSAT. On the DSO team side, Leon and Bruce both survived and returned to the lighthouse country with Shen Mei. The person Jason disguised himself as was from the GIM's unit, so after the assault mission, Leon found it time to talk to Luo Guang about that person. Luo Guang first asked the other party to keep it secret, and then told him about Jason. Leon had long guessed that Jason had come back from the dead, so he did not show much surprise. After getting permission, he told Shen Mei about Jason, which was considered to have untied the knot in her heart. The DSO team suffered heavy losses in this assault mission, and did not complete the task of monitoring Luo Guang. Leon knew that Luo Guang would take his own people to raid the enemy headquarters, but he did not ask to join the other party, because he believed in Luo Guang, and knew that the current situation was not the time for internal fighting, so he would naturally not go over to drag his feet. After President Adam knew the situation, he did not criticize Leon, nor did he remove or demote him. He directly skipped the matter of the surveillance mission, expressed condolences for the sacrifice of the DSO team, and proposed to hold a burial ceremony for these sacrificed agents and the lighthouse soldiers who participated in the assault mission. Another point is that he will increase investment in organizations such as the DSO team and the FOS organization. In this disaster, the lighthouse country also suffered heavy losses and needed to spend a lot of time to heal its wounds. But every failure is a lesson learned. It is hard to guarantee that there will not be such a level of biochemical crisis in the future, so President Adam will continue to strengthen the country's anti-biochemical forces. Leon naturally agreed with this idea, but after dealing with the DSO and the burial ceremony, he took a long vacation. He took this leave to accompany Ada on vacation. Although it was not mentioned before, Ada actually joined the assault mission, but her body was sensitive, so she could only disguise herself and follow the troops of the mysterious country, which was also a contribution to solving the incident. Leon and Luo Guang only knew that Ada was involved after the mission was over. The former was told by Ada on her own initiative, and naturally there was no lack of credit, so Leon took a long vacation to accompany her. The latter was found out by Luo Guang. When he was celebrating with Leon and others at the front line base, he suddenly remembered that Aida had not shown up, so he discovered her during a special investigation. However, Leon took leave this time. In addition to giving himself as a prize to Ada, he also had other preparations. Under the stimulation of Luo Guang's upcoming marriage, he also decided to propose to Ada. After all, both of them were in danger of life at work, and they didn't know when an accident would happen, so Leon didn't want to leave any regrets, so he decided to propose. At the end of 2014, although biochemical crises still broke out from time to time, they were small in scale, and it can be said that the world had a relatively peaceful period. Unfortunately, the peaceful days were soon broken by a new biochemical terrorist organization. The name of this terrorist organization is the Alliance. According to the investigation of BSA, the members of this organization are composed of the remnants of the Greyhound organization and the Apocalypse organization. In addition to the remnants of these two organizations, Luo Guang also found that there was another force behind them. In the end, he told his subordinates the intelligence he had investigated and did not personally participate in the relevant combat operations, because he was busy helping his two wives take care of the children. In the first year after the Apocalypse incident, he married Jill and Ashley in the mysterious country, and the guests he invited were all his friends and the relatives and friends of the women. Luo Guang would not repeat Arias's mistakes. He chose the mysterious country because it was the safest country in the world. In the same year, he made his two wives pregnant at the same time, without losing one for the other. Although Luo Guang did not participate in the battle, he still paid attention to various actions against the Alliance. According to the Red Emperor network tracking analysis, BSA learned that the Alliance used the natural gas transport ship Annabelle to smuggle a biological weapon called Evelyn to the lighthouse state. As a result, it encountered a typhoon that rarely occurs in 50 years, causing the Annabelle to run aground near the mouth of the Dulvey Swamp in Louisiana. Because they had to deal with unknown biological weapons, Steve decided to lead a team to the destination to investigate the wreckage of the ship and confirm the local infection situation. On the other hand, the Alliance's Munich Research Institute was also raided by the European branch of the BSA. One of the senior researchers named Miranda fled the scene after killing 3 BSA soldiers guarding her. Fortunately, Luo Guang had already implemented the Skynet monitoring system in European countries under the control of the X organization, so he quickly locked the researcher's escape route and confirmed that he had fled to the Romanian mountains. Originally, Parker should have sent someone to investigate this mission, but Luo Guang intervened and sent Jack and Shirley to an unknown village in the mountains to investigate. They are both adults and have received various antibiochemical crisis training since childhood. They are both excellent antibiochemical warriors. Because Africa is the place where Luo Guang has the greatest influence, no matter how the Alliance tries, it cannot trigger a biochemical crisis incident in Africa, resulting in Jack and Shirley having to travel around the world at public expense to deal with biochemical crisis incidents. Luo Guang asked Jack and Shirley to track Miranda, which was a big test for the two, but he still sent a clone to cover the bottom and protect the two secretly. After all, Cuddy has lost Wu Song as a support, and he can't lose Jack again. The result is naturally that the operations of the lighthouse country or Romania are successfully completed. Once Miranda died, the alliance she integrated was also uprooted by BSA. The root cause of the unrest in this world was strangled by him before it developed. Turn your attention back to Luo Guang. Although he has no interest in evolution and the system has disappeared, his strength is still growing year by year. After analyzing and studying the information of the Apocalypse organization, he unexpectedly discovered that he had actually completed evolution a long time ago. It was just that the system was still dividing the boundaries of evolution according to the current standards of humans at that time, so Luo Guang mistakenly thought that he had not evolved. Evolution has never been a single route, and the richness and diversity of the same family of creatures on Earth is a testimony to this. Humans are naturally no exception. In addition to the evolution divided by the Apocalypse organization, there are also people like Luo Guang who have taken a different approach to complete evolution. The bottleneck he noticed at the time was not actually the bottleneck of evolution, but the bottleneck of his personal strength. Therefore, Luo Guang entered the enhanced state to break through the boundaries, and did not feel anything special after crossing the ability boundaries set by the apocalypse. But now this matter is not important to him. After all, he has already stood at the top of the world. It has been 100 years since the apocalypse incident. As biochemical technology flourished under Luo Guang's supervision, humans turned their attention to space and used the powerful vitality and adaptability of biochemical fungi to transform the environment. With the official start of the transformation of the Martian environment, the first immigration site was also established on Mars. More hidden black technologies have been made public. With the miniaturization of batteries and breakthroughs in materials science, interstellar travel has become possible. Now, all that is missing is a breakthrough in long-distance travel technology, so that humans can break out of the solar system and open up a wider living space. And a lot of things have happened on Earth in these years. Luo Guang resigned as the commander of BSA and became the first Secretary General of the United Nations and Prime Minister of the Earth government. However, the latter is just a nominal position, a title used in the future when facing possible alien creatures. At this time, he is over 100 years old, but with the progress of global medical care, it is not surprising that he is still alive at this age, so there is no need to change his appearance to live. Naturally, Leon and the others are no exception and are still alive and well. September 28, 2107. Luo Guang, who was sweet and loving with his two wives every day, rarely went on a long trip. He and Jill took a large number of mechanical troops on a spaceship named Tiangong to Mars for inspection, and by the way, they solved the biochemical crisis incident that occurred there. This was the first biochemical crisis incident on Mars or in outer space. If this alien virus accidentally entered the Earth through a cargo ship, it would be another disaster for mankind, so he took it so seriously and went out to investigate the problem in person. It's still a day's journey to Mars. Jill looked at the navigation map and reported the situation. The appearance of the two was not much different from when they first met, and Jill was still beautiful now. Luo Guang was about to answer the question, but he heard the artificial intelligence in the ship reporting the emergency. This artificial intelligence is also considered a descendant of the Red Emperor, but its underlying logic and authority are still restricted by Luo Guang and others, so there has been no intelligent machine crisis so far. A distress signal was found, but the interference is serious, and I can't confirm its ship number. The voice of the artificial intelligence is the voice of a calm uncle. Is there enough fuel? It's near the waterway and won't affect the trip to Mars. Jill glanced at Luo Guang, then nodded and said, "Go over and confirm." Half an hour later, their spaceship finally saw the hull of the rescue ship in the distance. The overall structure is still there, but judging from the surrounding debris and the gaps on the hull, the ship should have exploded, so it ran aground here. Suddenly, an enemy launched a mental attack on Luo Guang. But now he is no longer the same person he was back then. He quickly set up mental defense and tracked the enemy's position. Following the direction of the enemy's mental power, a huge black and red spiral stone pillar was imprinted on Luo Guang's retina and appeared in his mind. Luo Guang? Is there an enemy? Jill was also affected and had hallucinations in what she saw. But she knew about mental power and was pulled by her husband to practice the offensive and defensive applications of mental power, so the hallucinations disappeared soon. It should be an enemy attack, perhaps the mastermind of this biochemical crisis. Luo Guang saw that there were alien monsters around a huge spiral stone pillar. The artificial intelligence and robot soldiers on the ship were not affected by the mental attack, and there were also special defense devices for EMP attacks and mental attacks. As soon as the voice fell, Luo Guang heard the enemy's call in his mind. "Luo Guang, you finally, come, I wait for you." He remembered this voice. It was the voice of the first seed when he became younger. He once said that his mission was given by God. Luo Guang originally thought that God was just an illusion of the other party, but now it seems that he has met the real master. The artificial intelligence is working normally. It has scanned the hull of the ship that sent out the distress signal and confirmed the name of the ship on the shell. Captain Luo Guang, the name of the distress ship has been confirmed to be the Ishimura, a large mining ship. Hearing this familiar name, Luo Guang opened his mouth wide and blurted out a sentence. And